the shadow of death. Said I won't fear no evil. I won't fear no evil. For God is with me. Oh, He's with me. So I'll never put more than you. Can bear. Though He slay me, yet will I trust Him. Yet will I trust Him. I can bear it, 'cause He said I can. Said I can bear. Oh, I can bear it, yeah. Only 'cause the Lord said I can. So I'll pick up my cross and I'll lay it at His feet, Lord. Because the Lord is my shepherd, I have everything that I need. He lets me rest in the meadow's grass, and He leads me beside the quiet streams. He restores my failing health, and He helps me to do what honors Him the most. That's what I say in His arms. Because the Lord is my shepherd, I have everything that I need. He lets me rest in the meadow's grass, and then He leads me beside the quiet streams. He restores my failing health, and He helps me to do what honors Him the most. That's why I'm saved. That's why I'm saved. That's why I'm saved. When the storms of life is raging, and the billows so glad He shall hide me. 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 So glad I come back
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We need everyone to please take this so the family can proceed and take their seats. You also need everyone to please cut your cell phone off. Please cut off your cell phones. Let's receive this family with dignity. Thank you so much for coming. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we need you to socially distance yourself. It's every other seat. Please, ma'am, please, sir, if you're sitting directly next to someone, can you please socially distance yourself? Thank you so much for your cooperation. Thank you.
You may be seated. My name is Robin Wilkerson, and I am the co-chancellor of North Central University. To all the friends and the family of George Floyd, and all of our esteemed guests here today, I want to welcome you on behalf of the university, on behalf of Dr. Scott Hagan, President, on behalf of the Board of Regents, on behalf of the faculty. We're so grateful that you're here with us today. And we're honored that you have come to mourn the loss and celebrate the life of Mr. George Floyd. On behalf of everyone here, I want to personally express our deepest condolences for this tragic loss. Now, to open this service, this celebration of his life, we will have a scripture reading from Reverend Jerry McAfee, pastor of New Salem Missionary Baptist Church, followed by an opening prayer from Dr. Scott Hagan, President of North Central University, and a solo by Mrs. Tawana Porter.
On behalf of the pastors and preachers from Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Bloods on the south side, Gangster Disciples and Vice Lords on the north side. Psalm 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. The war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. One thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me up upon a rock.
Just once again, on behalf of North Central University, I want to welcome the Floyd family to our campus. This is truly an undeserved honor for our university. I've been praying all week that this sacred space would become a table of healing for the Floyd family, for the city of Minneapolis, and for the world that is grieving beyond these walls. In just a moment, I want to offer a brief prayer. But before I offer that brief prayer, I just want to announce, as president of this school, the institution of the George Floyd Memorial Scholarship. Even before announcing this scholarship yesterday, unsolicited, over $53,000 was handed to me to contribute toward the educational promise of aspiring young Black American leaders. But here's what I really want to say. Far beyond North Central University, I am now challenging every university president in the United States of America to establish your own George Floyd Memorial Scholarship Fund. So people across this nation can give to the college of their choice. It is time to invest like never before in a new generation of young Black Americans who are poised and ready to take leadership on our nation. So university presidents, let's step up together. I want to invite you now to pray with me, if you will. Lord, your word in Proverbs 31 is dynamically clear. It says to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Ensure justice for those being crushed. Yes, speak up for the poor and the helpless and see that they get justice. Lord, we are asking today for you to take this table of healing here in Minneapolis today and multiply this healing all over this nation as part of that now never fading voice crying out on behalf of those who have been and who are now being crushed in body and spirit. At this table of healing today, Lord, we ask that you touch the Floyd family with supernatural comfort and grace, that they may be granted a few moments of respite as their beloved father and brother and son is remembered in a way that honors his life and his personal faith in Jesus Christ. At this table of healing, we are asking you, Lord, to show us the way. Our city and nation are becoming rightfully despondent, with neighbors set against neighbor. Help us to repent, not just seek to restore. As a nation, as cities, as universities, and as religious communities, heal, make new, and help us, O Lord, rebuild our national family. And finally, Lord, at this table of healing today, we are asking you to search our hearts as pastors, rabbis, priests, imams, business leaders, politicians, and educators. Help us reconcile our failed witness and lead us forward as caring neighbors and diligent gatekeepers of mutuality and mercy. Guide this generation to change the national narrative on race and power, and change all of our hearts until they match your heart. We ask all of these things in the name above all names, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieve. How precious is that grace of
Thank you to Tawana. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to have the opportunity now to hear in just a moment from loved ones, friends, and family of George Floyd. But before that, I would like to welcome to the podium Attorney Benjamin Crump for his remarks. Would you please welcome him? Thank you.
I'm Attorney Ben Crump, and along with Attorney Tony Ramanucci and Attorney Chris Stewart, as my co-counsels out front seeking justice for the family of George Floyd, along with a lot of other great attorneys who are working in the background, who I will mention briefly before we bring up the ones who knew George Floyd all of his life. I want to thank lawyers towing in the vineyards like Devin Jacob, Chris O'Neill, Lee Merritt, Daryl Parks, Jasmine Rand, Bill Pentas, and Carol Powell Lexon, because you all may see Tony and Chris and I, but it's a whole team of lawyers who are working, because it's going to take a united effort fighting in the courtroom and outside the courtroom to get justice for George Floyd. I would tell you all that because of the coronavirus pandemic, we have to stay on a strict schedule, and we all have to do this social distancing. But I want to just put it on the record, Reverend Al, that it was not the coronavirus pandemic that killed George Floyd. I want to make it clear on the record. Will Packard, it was that other pandemic that we're far too familiar with in America, that pandemic of racism and discrimination that killed George Floyd. So before we make a plea to justice, we feel it appropriate that you hear from the people who really knew George, the boy, knew George, the adolescent, knew George, the man, and from whence George came. So I would ask that his brother Polonus Floyd, his brother Rodney Floyd, his cousin Sharita Tate, his nephew Brandon Williams, please come to the stage, and I would ask Attorney Tony Ramanucci and Attorney Chris Stewart to come and stand with me behind them as united they tell the world why we should celebrate the life of George Floyd. Please come up, family.
Yes, correct.
How y'all doing first? My name is Philonis Floyd, brother of George Floyd. We come up together. We didn't have much. Our mom did what she could. We would sleep in the same beds, play video games together, go outside and, play catch with the football. And I used to say to myself, like, man, you can't throw. You can't throw at all. You know what I mean? Because the ball never came to me. And years down the line, I was catching with one hand, two hands. Any way you threw it, I started being able to catch it. He said, I can throw, but I just wanted you to go get the ball. The ball don't need to come to you. You need to go get the ball. But, my brother, we did a lot of things together. From like talking with my mom, dancing with my mom, cooking with our mom, brothers and sisters, man, so much. We made banana mayonnaise sandwiches together, It was a family thing, Every day, we know when we come in the house, our mom was gonna have a huge plate of food separate from each other. And we would sit there and argue with each other who plate it was. And I'm like in 10 or 11, I'm talking about the plate with 6 pieces of chicken is mine. And he way bigger than me. You know what I mean? He's huge. So, man, from that, being in the house with my brother, man, it was just like inspiring to other people because my mom used to take in other kids. And most of them was George's friends. And they wanted to stay with her. They loved her, And my brother, he was okay with it. So then you had 3, to me, they were grown then because they kicked me out the room. They were 3 men, like 16, 17, they grown, sleeping in the same bed, waking up, going to the same school. And they wouldn't leave each other at all. They always wanted to be with each other at all times. And I remember nights when the day before school, we didn't have a washing machine. So we would all go in and put our socks and underwear in a bathroom sink and just start washing them. If we didn't have detergent, we would use soap. But we would wash them. We were going to be clean. We were going to be clean. So we would literally, right after that, we would take the socks and hang them over the hot water heater. And we'd take the underwear and hang them over there. And we would fight about it, me and his friends and all of them. Be like, no, you did it last night because your clothes probably still be damp the next day if you don't put it on the hot water heater. So from that, and we learned a lot of stuff, but it's crazy because we didn't have a dryer. So the fastest way to dry your clothes was to put it in the oven and let it dry faster like that. So it was just, man, I love my brother, man. We had so many memories, together. I remember him waking me up, telling me, hey man, can you iron my clothes for me? And I look at him, and then I look at his size, and I say, you right, big bro, you right. You know what I mean? It was just amazing. Everywhere you go and see people, how they cling to him. They wanted to be around him. George, he was like a general. Every day, he walks outside, there'd be a line of people, like just like when we came in, wanted to greet him and wanted to have fun with him. Guys that was doing drugs, like smokers and homeless people, you couldn't tell, because when you spoke to George, they felt like they was the president, because that's how he made you feel. He was powerful, man. He had a way with words. He could always make you ready to jump and go all the time. Everybody loved George. We didn't call him George. We called him Perry. If you called him Perry, you knew him direct, you know? Because George was the name, everybody called him Big George, Big Floyd, you know, Georgie Porgy. He had so many different names. But I'm going to go ahead and man, it's crazy, man. All these people came to see my brother, and that's amazing to me that he touched so many people's hearts. You know, because he's been touching our hearts, you know. You come to Third Ward, where we're from, people are crying right now. That's how much they love them. You know, I'm just staying strong as I can, because I need to get it out. I need to get it out. Everybody wants justice. We want justice for George. He's going to get it. He's going to get it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to echo some of the things that Philon has talked about, and that is that we come from a long line of large family members. Our mothers were siblings of 13, and if I can kind of fast forward a little bit, my aunt she lived in Houston, and she would always talk about being there, not having any of the siblings close to her. So my mother decided to move to the Houston area back early 80, 81. And so we came to Houston, and we were all excited that we could have somebody close to us, because the only time we really would see each other is like during the holidays or when people would travel to visit my grandmother. Long story short, I mean, we didn't have a whole lot, but we always had each other. And we always were taught that, you know, we could always bring other people into the fold. Always, no one should ever go home without having a meal or having food. And so that's how, as he talked about, my aunt was someone in the community that everybody, they called her Miss Sissy. And all the kids loved to come over there. And she ended up having, you know, 30 or 40 kids that would come over there because they always knew that they could get something to eat if they came there. And not only food, but they could be loved and they could feel part of a fold. So we were raised to always welcome people in and to embrace other people. And so you could see, as all these people, no matter who you talk to, they will all say the same thing, and that George was somebody who was always welcoming, always made people feel like that they were special, and nobody felt left out. And he would enter into a room. Everybody would feel like they were special. He would embrace them. As I think about the thing that I would miss about him most is his hugs. Like, he was this great big giant, and when he would wrap his arms around you, you just feel like, you know, you were, everything could just go away. Any problems you had, any concerns you had would go away. So while we're all grieving, I just want to kind of highlight his children, you know, Quincy, Javion, Tanjanika, Tyson, and Gianna, and his 3-year-old granddaughter, Journey. We all need prayer. But if I am honest about it, we are more concerned about his children and his grandchildren. So I ask that you pray for us as we go along this marathon to make sure that justice is served on George's behalf, or Perry as we call him. I ask that you pray for us and especially for their children. Thank you.
How y'all doing? I am Rodney Floyd, youngest brother of George Floyd. And my older brother PJ was talking about childhood memories and how we grew up. And I would like to start where he left off. We didn't have much growing up, but all that great stuff, how we dried and washed our clothes, that was just ingenuity. And I mean, hey, we worked with what we had, but didn't have much, but we had a house full of love. And I mean, I appreciate the love of everyone in here in the state of Minneapolis. Y'all adopted my brother and showed him so much love, and we feel that love in your city, and thankfully everybody plus around the world. It's a beautiful thing, this great love we're receiving, and George Floyd is receiving, because he would love it. I wish he was here in the presence in the flesh to see it, because all this great unity, he would bring in the tears like he's bringing us. But share fun, me and my brother, Big Floyd, as y'all know. Cooking wise, he would beg me, honestly, him and the other brothers, 3 gentlemen my brother mentioned grew up in our household. They would say, "Little bro, you make the best grilled cheese. Can you please go make us one?" And I mean, if I tell y'all as a little 6 or 7-year-old kid, I did that numerous times, and I realized as I got older, y'all just using me. But you know, I was just happy to be doing it. But my big brother, I mean, great guy, great gentleman, great man, and as a child, without no father figure, he was big brother, but I didn't see the little stuff that he was throwing out. He was doing the best he can, and the mistakes he made, and I watching them, following him, correcting myself as a grown man, as a teenager growing up, and you know, learning from him how to be a man, and everything he instilled us and taught us. He was doing him, but he was teaching us how to be a man, because he was in this world already before us, and he gave us a lot of great lessons. And I mean, one thing about a man, keep the definition as is. Floyd, responsibility. He would stand up for his family and friends, and he's great at that. And I want you guys to know that he would stand up for any injustice everywhere. Can y'all please say his name? Thank y'all.
I'm Brandon Williams, George's nephew. I call him Perry. You know, we happen to share the same middle name for some reason. My mama wanted to name all of us after some of her siblings, and coincidentally, I ended up with George. Growing up, I mean, I'm a lot younger than them, but my grandmother raised me. I didn't have a father figure present in my life, so I grew up in the same house with them. And you know, my uncles were more of a father figure in my life. But Perry being the alpha male, you know, I gravitated to him. Coming up, I played sports. He did. You know, that kind of connected us, brought us real close. I'm trying not to be sad. This is a lot harder than I thought it would be. I just remember. Just all of the memories, man. So more than anything, I just want to say thank you to him, just for being there, just being a real, genuine person, just being loving and caring, and somebody I can count on no matter what. We didn't have much, but coming up, my grandmother tried her best, and wherever she slept, he picked it up for me. He made sure I had sneakers and clothes and a lot of stuff like that, and I appreciate that. I'm gonna end it with a funny story about he was the biggest LeBron James fan. And I remember, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the NBA, but when the Cavaliers, they came back on the Golden State Warriors in the finals, and I remember the very first phone call, and I told him, "Oh man, you too happy, you sound like you won a championship." And we laughed about it, and you know, he said, "Man, you know how I feel about LeBron. I did win the championship." So, and every time we would talk, you know, I asked him, like, "Hey, how you doing, man? You good?" And he said, "I feel like I won a championship." And that kind of stuck. It was just this inside thing we had. So I know with him being the strong person he was, and seeing everybody come together and just rally around him, and extend all of the love and support to our family, and we thankful and grateful. And I know more than anything, with everybody grieving and hurting, people want us to feel like we won a championship. So I'll end on that note. Thank y'all.
Y'all, please give his family another round of applause. Please show them love. Show them love. all so much for bearing your hearts. If we learned one thing, the Floyd boys like to eat. And also, they had a conversation with Tyler Perry, and it was pretty profound because they said, we are the big extended black family that you portray, Will Packard and others, on your movie screens, because we all need one another. And you can tell this family always needed George. And so it's awfully difficult for them. The plea for justice is simply this. Dr. Martin Luther King said, he who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetrate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really like cooperating with it. You know, T.I., on that video, what we saw was torture. Reverend Jackson, what we saw in that video was inhumane. Martin III, what we saw in that video was evil. And so America, we proclaim, as we memorialize George Floyd, do not cooperate with evil. Protest against evil. Join the young people in the streets protesting against the evil, the inhumane, the torture that they witnessed on that video. We cannot cooperate with evil. We cannot cooperate with injustice. We cannot cooperate with torture. Because George Floyd deserved better than that. We all deserve better than that. His family deserves better than that. His children deserve better than that. Steve, all George wanted from life is what any of us want. As Thomas Jefferson said in the Declaration of Independence, the unalienable rights endowed by our Creator, Tyrese, to life, liberty, and the pursuit to be happy on this earth. That's all George was asking for, like any and all of us. But he was denied those rights. And we will seek justice in his name. We will all, united as a people who are God's children, seek justice in his name. But beyond the specific justice, in his case, Chris, the prosecution of the 4 individuals who deprived George of his life, we seek a broader, more transformative justice. Reverend Al, a more just system of policing. Kevin, a more just treatment of people of color. Chris, a more just criminal justice system. In essence, what we are endeavoring to do, Brandon, is what my personal hero, Thurgood Marshall, said. Make the Constitution real for all Americans. You see, Justice Marshall said, the basis of the Constitution is simply this, that a black baby born to a black mother, the most uneducated black mother, the most inarticulate black mother, the most impoverished black mother has the same exact rights as a white baby born to a white mother, the most educated white mother, the most articulate white mother, has the most affluent white mother, just by virtue of that as an American. Now, Justice Marshall said, Reverend Jackson, I know that's not the case in America today, but I challenge anybody to say, Tony, that's not the goal we're fighting for. He said, I challenge anybody to say, that's not what makes America the great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. So when we fight for the George Floyds of the world, but more importantly, when we fight for the unknown George Floyds of the world, when we fight for the Trayvon Martins of the world, when we fight for the Terrence Crutches of the world, when we fight for the Michael Browns of the world, when we fight for the Alton Sterlings of the world, when we fight for the Philando Castillos of the world, when we fight for the Jamar Clarks of the world, when we fight for the Eric Gardners of the world, when we fight for the Sandra Blands of the world, when we fight for the Ahmaud Arbery's of the world, when we fight for the Breonna Taylors of the world, when we fight for the Natasha McKinney's of the world, when we fight for the Stephon Clarks of the world, when we fight for the least of these, what we are really doing is helping America live up to its creed. What we're really doing is helping America be the great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. But most importantly, brothers and sisters, what we are doing is helping America be America for all Americans. What we want, T.I., is not two justice systems in America, one for black America and one for white America. What we endeavor to achieve is equal justice for the United States of America, and George Floyd is the moment that gives us the best opportunity I have seen in a long time of reaching that high ideal that this country was founded on. Thank you so much. This is the plea for justice. On behalf of the family, the children, we will get justice. We are committed to it. Now, I would introduce you to a man who really needs no introduction, who will eulogize George Floyd. He is a man who has fought for so many families that too many hashtags to remember. And when he gets the call, he always answers the call. Even when the cameras aren't around, even after the cameras are gone. Ask Eric Garner's family. Ask Stephon Clark's family. Ask any of these families. The cameras have long gone, Tony, but Reverend Al continues to answer the bell when our people call. He is a leader that you see on TV commentating about our experiences, but more importantly, he is a leader who has lived our experiences, and because he has lived those experiences, that's what makes him so effective in commentating on MSNBC about our experiences. And he is going to talk about the experience of the terrible loss of somebody who should be with us today, and that is George Floyd. Please give a great round of applause for the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Thank you. I want us to not sit here and act like we had a funeral on the schedule. George Floyd should not be among the deceased. He did not die of common health conditions. He died of a common American criminal justice malfunction. He died because of there has not been the corrective behavior that has taught this country that if you commit a crime, it does not matter whether you wear blue jeans or a blue uniform, you must pay for the crime you commit. So it is not a normal funeral. It is not a normal circumstance, but it's too common, and we need to deal with it. Let me ask those of you that in the traditions of eulogies need a scriptural reference, go to Ecclesiastes 3rd chapter. First verse says, to everything there is a time and a purpose and season under the heavens. I'm going to leave it there. I saw somebody standing in front of a church the other day had been boarded up as a result of violence, held the Bible in his hand. I've been preaching since I was a little boy. I never seen anyone hold a Bible like that, but I'll leave that alone. But since he held the Bible, if he's watching us today, I would like him to open that Bible. And I'd like him to read Ecclesiastes 3. To every season, there's a time and a purpose. And I think that it is our job to let the world know when we see what is going on in the streets of this country and in Europe, around the world, that you need to know what time it is. First of all, we cannot use Bibles as a prop. And for those that have agendas that are not about justice, this family will not let you use George as a prop. If you want to get your stuff off, don't use him. Let us stand for what is right. Because when I got the call from Attorney Crump, and usually when he calls me, it's not to find out how I'm doing. It's usually because something happened that he wants National Action Network and I to get involved. And he explained to me what was happening with this case. And I'd already heard about it in the media. And immediately I said, well, let me know what you want me to do. He said, whatever you need to do. One of the things, Martin, that I've always had to deal with is critics would say, all Al Sharpton wants is publicity. Well, that's exactly what I want. Because nobody calls me to keep a secret. People call me to blow up issues that nobody else will deal with. I'm the blow up man, and I don't apologize for that. Because you get away too much with hiding things. Honey has talked about y'all putting clothes in the oven to have your clothes dried. Well, I didn't grow up in the third world, but I grew up in Third Ward. I grew up in Brownsville. and we had roaches. Now I know Kevin Hart and some of the rich Hollywood folk here don't know what roaches are, but we had roaches, Ludacris. And one thing I found out about roaches is that if you keep the light off, if you're in the dark, a roach will pull up to your dinner table and have a 5-course meal. So I learned that one of the ways to deal with roaches is if you cut the light on, I could run them roaches and track them down. And I've spent all my life chasing roaches all over this country. As soon as I talked to the family and got the details and heard that among George's last words was, "I can't breathe," with a knee on his neck, I immediately thought about Eric Gardner. I did the eulogy at his funeral, and I called his mother, and I said, "I know we're not going out because of the coronavirus, but this is so much like Eric. If we could arrange some private way to go to Minneapolis, would you go?" And she said, "Rev Al, I'm already packing, let me know." Tyler Perry said, "I'll give the families, the plane, whatever y'all need, because this is wrong." Robert Smith said, "Don't worry about the funeral costs." People across economic and racial lines started calling and getting in. And we flew out here, her and I, last Thursday. And when I stood at that spot, the reason it got to me is George Floyd's story has been the story of black folks. Because ever since 401 years ago, the reason we could never be who we wanted and dreamed to be in is you kept your knee on our neck. We were smarter than the underfunded schools you put us in, but you had your knee on our neck. We could run corporations and not hustle in the street, but you had your knee on our neck. We had creative skills. We could do whatever anybody else could do. But we couldn't get your knee off our neck. What happened to Floyd happens every day in this country, in education, in health services, and in every area of American life. It's time for us to stand up in George's name and say, "Get your knee off our necks." That's the problem, no matter who you are. We thought maybe we had a complex, T.I., maybe it was just us. But even blacks that were broke through, you kept your knee on that neck. Michael Jordan won all of these championships, and you kept digging for mess because you got to put a knee on our neck. White housewives would run home to see a black woman on TV named Oprah Winfrey, and you mess with her because you just can't take your knee off our neck. Man comes out of a single parent home, educates himself, and rises up and becomes the president of the United States. And you ask him for his birth certificate, because you can't take your knee off our neck. The reason why we're marching all over the world is we were like George. We couldn't breathe, not because there was something wrong with our lungs, but you wouldn't take your knee off our neck. We don't want no favors. Just get them off of us, and we can be and do whatever we can be. There have been protests all over the world. Some have looted and done other things. And none of us in this family condones looting or violence. But the thing I want us to be real cognizant of is there's a difference between those calling for peace and those calling for quiet. Some of y'all don't want peace. You just want quiet. You just want us to shut up and suffer in silence. The overwhelming majority of the people marching wasn't breaking windows. They were trying to break barriers. They wasn't trying to steal nothing. They were trying to get back the justice you stole from us. Those that broke the law should pay for whatever law they broke. But so should the 4 policemen that caused this funeral today. We don't have a problem denouncing violence, Mr. Governor. We don't have a problem, Mr. Mayor, denouncing looting. But it seems like some in the criminal justice system have a problem looking at a tape and knowing there's probable cause, and it takes a long time for you to go and do what you see that you need to do. But I'm one that has been Crump said. National Action Network and I have been involved in a lot of these fights we started around criminal justice. I did speeches and eulogies at most of the funerals that we've had in this space in the last couple of decades, and led the marches and did what we had to do. I look at Martin III, we went to jail together, fighting these fights, like his daddy went to jail before. But I'm more hopeful today than ever. Why? Well, let me go back. Reverend Jackson always taught me, stay on your text. Go back to my text, Ecclesiastes. There is a time and a season. And when I looked this time and saw marches where in some cases young whites outnumbered the blacks marching, I know that it's a different time and a different season. When I looked and saw people in Germany marching for George Floyd, it's a different time and a different season. When they went in front of the Parliament in London, England, and said it's a different time and a different season, I come to tell you, America, this is the time of dealing with accountability in the criminal justice system. Stephen, years ago, I went to march. Now I remember a young white lady looked me right in the face and said, "Nigga, go home." But when I was here last Thursday, and Miss Carr and I was headed back to the airport, I stopped near the police station. And as I was talking to a reporter, a young white girl, she didn't look no older than 11 years old. She tagged my suit jacket. And I looked around and I braced myself. And she looked at me and said, "No justice, no peace." It's a different time. It's a different season. And if my Bible carrying guy in front of that boarded up church, if I got him to open up the Bible, I want you to remember something. You know, I was late last October to an appointment because the time changed. And I was still, my watch was on the wrong time. You know, once a year, time goes forward. And if you don't, Congresswoman Omar, move your watch, you're going to find yourself an hour late, not because your watch was wrong, but you had your watch on the wrong time. Well, I come to tell you that is sitting in Washington, talking about militarizing the country, thinking that you can sell wolf tickets to people who's had enough of abuse. I come to tell you, you can get on the TV, but you on the wrong time. Time is out for not holding you accountable. Time is out for you making excuses. Time is out for you trying to stall. Time is out for empty words and empty promises. Time is out for you filibustering and trying to stall the arm of justice. This is the time. We won't stop. We gonna keep going until we change the whole system of justice. Our organizations have called us a day of mourning. NAACP, National Urban League, Legal Defense Fund, Black Women's Roundtable, Lawyers Committee, all got together, said we're gonna have a day of mourning. But then we're gonna come out this day of mourning, because as some of our experts, Cheryl and Eiffel and others that know the legal field have outlined a legal process that we must enforce, everything from residency to dealing with police backgrounds not being hidden. Talked to Governor Andrew Cuomo today in New York. He says we got to change 58 where the backgrounds stop of policemen. We need to know if they stop you, they find out everything you ever did. Why don't we know when policemen have a pattern? We got to go back to consent decrees. Under the Obama administration, they had put certain cities with patterns and practice under consent decrees. Remember Jamal Brown to know when he was pastoring there in Baltimore, that they put it under consent decree. One of the first things that happened in the next administration was they stopped the consent decrees. We have specific policies that need to happen. Therefore, I'm glad Martin III is here today, because on August 28th, the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington, we're going back to Washington, Martin. That's where your father stood in the shadows of the Lincoln Memorial and said, "I have a dream." Well, we're going back this August 28th to restore and recommit that dream, to stand up, because just like at one era we had to fight slavery, another era we had to fight Jim Crow, another era we dealt with voting rights, this is the era to deal with policing and criminal justice. We need to go back to Washington and stand up, black, white, Latino, Arab, in the shadows of Lincoln, and tell them this is the time to stop this. Martin and I talked about this. I've asked Reverend Bryant to get the faith leaders together. I talked Randy Weingart about the labor leaders. Oh no, we're going to organize in the next couple months in every region, not only for a march, but for a new process. And it's going to be led by the Floyd family. And it's going to be led by the Garner family. And it's going to be led by those families that have suffered this and knows the pain and knows what it is to be neglected. And it's going to be getting us ready to vote not just for who's going to be in the White House, but the State House and the city councils that allow these policing measures to go unquestioned. We are going to change the time. Let me say this to the family who has shown such great grace and real level and balanced thinking. And that's why I want them to help lead this. And I think one of the greatest thinkers of our time, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, I've asked come and speak. We need to break down, because y'all don't know what time it is. Y'all are operating like it's yesterday. And the reason y'all late catching up to what these protests means is because you didn't turn your clock forward. Talking about make America great. Great for who and great when? We gonna make America great for everybody for the first time. Never was great for blacks. Never was great for Latinos. Wasn't never great for others. Wasn't great for women. Young women had to march to get the right to vote. But lastly is the religious side. I was reading and kept thinking about how I was a little embarrassed, because when I heard that George, at this point of suffering this brutal attack, called for his mama, I said to Attorney Crump, I said, well, I appreciate talking to his brothers and them on the phone, but I want to talk to his mother. He said his mother passed. I said his mother passed, but he was calling for his mother. And I thought about it because I was raised by a single mother. And sometimes the only thing between us and our conditions was our mothers. Sometimes the only thing that we had that would take danger away was our mothers. The only ones that would make sure the food was on the table was our mother. I know why George was calling for mama. But then as I had got that all placed in my mind, and I realized why I was always calling her. My mother died 8 years ago, but I still try to talk to her. Sometimes just dial a cell phone to hear the voicemail or phone that I never cut off. I still want to reach out to mama. But talking to Quincy last night, one of his 5 children, Quincy said, you know, I was thinking maybe he was calling his mother, because at the point that he was dying, his mother was stretching her hands out, saying, come on, George, I'll welcome you where the wicked will cease from troubling, where the weary will be at rest. There's a place where police don't put knees on you, George. There's a place that prosecutors don't drag their feet. Maybe mama said, come on, George. There's a God that still sits high, but he looks down low and he'll make a way out of no way. This God is still on the throne. The reason we can fight, I don't care who's in the White House, there's another house that said if we'll fight, he'll fight our battles. If we stand up, he'll hold us up. So as we leave here today, I say to this family, I know that years ago we told them, Reverend Jackson told us, keep hope alive. Then I know that President Obama wrote a book about hope. But I want you to know in my life, there's times that I lost hope. Things can happen like this that'll dash your hope. But there's something that is sister to hope called faith. Faith is the substance of things. Hope for evidence of things unseen. Faith is when you got a pile of bills and no money, but you say he will provide all of my needs. Faith is when you got no medicine in the cabinet and you're sick in your body, but you say he's a doctor that never lost a patient and he'll dry tears from my eyes. Faith is when your friends walk out, when your loved ones turn their back, but you say, I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me now. We didn't come this far by luck. We didn't come this far by some fate. We come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word. He never failed me yet. From the outhouse to the White House, we come a long way. God will, God shall, God will, God always has. He'll make a way for his children. Go on home, George. Get your rest, George. You changed the world, George. We're going to keep marching, George. We're going to keep fighting, George. We done turned the clock, George. We're going forward, George. Time out. Time out. Time out. Hezekiah Walker. We asked gospel great Hezekiah Walker to sing a song for the family. After which, Derek Johnson of the NAACP asked me, Attorney Crump, we're going to stand for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Though that was the time that George was on the ground. And we want you all over the world to stand with us for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and make that commitment for justice in the name of George. I want to thank the members of the Congressional Black Caucus for being with us. Won't you stand? I want to thank the son and heir and co-convener, Dr. Martin Luther King III, for being with us. I want to thank the mayor and the governor and their brides for being with the family. Senator Amy Klobuchar of the state of Minnesota. I want to thank my mentor and one who's fought this fight for more than a half a century. Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson is with us. And his spokesman for Rainbow Push, Jonathan Luther Jackson. I want to thank from the entertainment world, Kevin Hart. He told me don't mention he's here, so don't clap. Stand up, Kevin. We joke each other. Brother Beloved, stand up, brother. Brother Ludacris. Tyrese Gibson, who's an extraordinary activist in his own right. Master P. The one and only, the creative genius, Will Packard, is with us today. And a brother that we marched together and done a lot of things. He does not just put his name on somebody's petition, he puts his body on the line. Brother T.I. is in the house. I want This brother's one of the greatest gospel singers alive. Is Tiffany here? Oh, wait a minute. I didn't want to announce it and say I'm embarrassed, but let me tell you something. One of the most popular, outstanding artists that is also committed. I've read her interview. She think I'm old and don't read stuff, but I do. And she's been committed and saying the right things, and she wanted to be here today. And I was so busy joking with Kevin, I didn't even look at her. Let us welcome our sister beloved, Sister Tiffany Haddish is in the house. Well, I want to announce all the rest. Wait a minute, y'all don't start introducing folk. I got them all. Let us hear a selection from Brother Hezekiah Walker.
God bless everybody. Let's have some church for a little while. Y'all ready to have some church? I came all the way from Brooklyn, New York to do this for George and the family. The song says, every praise, amen, is unto our God. Let's do it. Come on, let's stand to our feet, everybody. Come on. Come on. Put your hands together. Come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on. Every praise, come on.
Every praise
It's to our God.
is to our God.
Every word of worship.
Every word of worship.
With one accord.
One accord.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise
To our God.
is to our God.
Sing hallelujah.
Sing hallelujah, oh, to our God.
Glory hallelujah.
Glory, hallelujah.
It's to our God.
To our God.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
To our God.
To our God.
Come on, let's take it up. Come on.
Every praise.
To our God.
To our God.
Put them hands together. Come on.
Every word of worship.
With one accord.
One accord.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
To our God.
To our God.
Look at your neighbor and say, sing hallelujah.
Sing hallelujah, oh, to our God.
Glory hallelujah.
Glory, hallelujah.
It's to our God.
To our God.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
To our God.
To our God.
Come on, my people. Let's take it up one more time. Come on.
Every praise
It's
to our God.
every word of worship.
Every word of worship.
With one accord.
One accord.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every praise.
Every
we remain standing, I want to recognize Clyde Bellecourt of the American Indian Movement. Brother Bellecourt, we're honored that you came. Thank you. And let me say, they recognize someone yelled out the state chair of the NAACP and many of Black Lives Matter, many of the grassroots organizations that have been doing the protests on the ground in Minneapolis and around the country. Movements are about everybody. We don't exclude anybody. Those young folks, some of them are organic, some organized on their own, some NAACP, some Urban League, some National Action Network. We need everybody. This is not a competition, this is a movement. And we need to stop our competing and start fighting the real enemy. Thank you for doing what y'all are doing. When I got here, they were marching, and they kept marching. They didn't need nobody to come organize something. They organized, and we're going to stay organized. And I really thank them for their work. We want to pause for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I want you, because of the pandemic, I'm not going to ask you to take hands, but I want you to stand next to someone with the right distance. The amazing thing about this movement, people say they never see marches all over the country. Well, we've had that, but we never had it in a pandemic. The reason I know this is a different time is people came out by the hundreds of thousands at risk of their own health to stand up. People that had been sheltered in broke out of shelter. First flight I took was to come here in many weeks. And maybe in God's own way, Martin, the fact we were sheltered means we couldn't watch sports, couldn't watch nothing. We had to keep watching that tape. Maybe because we had no distractions, that finally we're ready to deal with this. So as we stand, I would like us to stand together, and I think there's only one woman up here. I want Tiffany, since I was disrespectful, would you come stand with us up here? Tiffany Haddish, so you won't be talking about me in your next interview. And I would like the mother of Ergana, who's mother of the one who originally died of police custody, saying I can't breathe, to stand with me and Ben Crump on stage. It's Gwen Carr. Let us stand. Somebody said, Reverend, 8 minutes is a long time. That minute was long enough for the police to understand what they were doing. That means it was long enough for one of them 3 cops to stop what was going on. That means it was long enough for whatever this officer had in mind for him to rethink. As you go through these long 8 minutes, think about what George was going through, laying there for those 8 minutes, begging for his life. Heard someone say, narrating his own death. We can't let this go. We can't keep living like this. Sam Jackson, is Sam still here? Steve Jackson, is he here? Steve, we won't recognize, I was recognizing everybody. We got to stop this here. And we got to, in this time, bring about a new season. Let us stand still. You that believe in faith, bow your heads, or whichever way you worship. That's a long time. If we've calculated with the clock here, that's how long he was laying there. There's no excuse. They had enough time. They had enough time. Now what will we do with the time we have? As we usher the family out, please let us take them out first. They have to prepare to go to North Carolina and then back to Houston, where we will do the final services. They appreciate you all for coming. Let everybody else be seated but the family. Reverend Bryant, will you come quickly? Give us a benediction. Just a benediction. And we're going to take the family out. Everyone else remain in your seats.
If you will remain where you are for the benediction. Good and gracious God, merciful Master, walk with us while we run this race. Speak to us as we lift our voice. Use our hands so that they do not become fists. Change our hearts so that our rage will shift to rehabilitation. Convict the country so it can finally be the land of the free and the home of the brave. We pray this prayer in the name of an innocent black man by the name of Jesus, who was killed by a government and still rose again. And with that power, we march on until victory is won.
Let's usher the family.
Excuse me, we need everyone to be seated except the family. Please, everyone, please be seated except the family. Let's, please, everyone, please remain in your seat as we escort this family out. Thank you so much. Please, we need everyone to remain seated.
shout victory.
Come on, can you please remain seated for a minute to escort the family out? Please, let's escort this family out. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Thank you so much.
What a day of rejoicing that will be when we all see
The family has grown.
Jesus. We will sing and shout victory. We will sing.
Please let the family leave, please. Can we please let the family exit the building? Thank you for respecting this family. Thank all those who respected the family.
We will sing and shout victory. 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 We will sing and shout victory.
Thank you so much. God bless you all.
We want to say thank you to everyone who has come today. We want to say how much we appreciate taking your time, and we are dismissed at this time, and make your way safely and respectfully as you depart from the sanctuary. Have a wonderful day.
Move out into the lobby at this time. We're going to ask that you exit the sanctuary at this time, please.
That was a view from inside the media room of the services for George Floyd. I'm gonna bring you outside. Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. So this is Nico from Unicorn Riot. Thank you all for watching the somber memorial with us. You see outside, there's hundreds of people out here screaming George Floyd's name as he gets wheeled into the hearse.
No justice, no peace. You say, prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. 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 Prosecute the
That was the gold hearse was George Floyd inside. You see the security team moving away right now for the hearse to be on its way. There's a lot of people along the sides.
On the hop, my man. On the hop. Hurry up.
Thank you, bro.
That way. Hey, yo, dude, come on. Yo, move that way, man. Stay towards here.
How you doing, bro? Good, man. How are you?
Everybody's been asking me.
Who is this?
Andrew McCall.
Oh, hey, Andrew. How you doing?
Hey, Nico, everybody.
I keep hearing other people say, yo, you got amazing content. You got amazing content, dude.
Thank you.
Good job.
You're doing great things. I'm going to get away from you so that way they can watch you.
Okay, word.
Sorry about that.
just at a service for George Floyd. Now the hearse is up the street. We're going to watch it go out of this area of North Central University.
How you doing? Ma'am.
Patience. How you doing?
Please.
Good to see you. You doing okay?
Right here.
Got emotion out here. Even with some requests. I ran over there thinking that they were jumping out right away with the vehicle. Wasn't true. I was trying to get them leaving the vicinity, so we will still probably do that. And obviously there's a pause. Here's the hearse.
Come on. We're not doing all of that. Get them off of there.
So there goes the hearse of George Floyd.
We're closing that off at.
As that heads off. Do you know exactly where it's headed?
I don't.
Okay.
George Floyd!
Some people on the side are out here as well. There's people everywhere around this university, North Central University here in Minneapolis, on the south side. About 30 to 40 blocks away from the site where George Floyd was murdered. Here's firefighters giving a knee as he passed by them.
No peace! No justice! No peace!
Hey, can somebody talk about what they're doing here with the knee?
just respect and for Floyd, and we're supporting Black firefighters, supporting the cause.
Yeah. So you all stayed here, waited for the hearse to go by, and then you all kneeled, or how long have you been kneeling?
Yep, we waited for them to go by. This is our second time kneeling.
And you're the chief of?
I am a deputy chief of Minneapolis Fire Department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Anybody else feel like talking what this means to them? Anybody feel like talking about what this means to them as a firefighter taking the knee? No? You talk? Yeah. How's it feel? These very somber moments.
It's just tragic events that happen. We just want to show our respect, Black Firefighter Association.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for what you do, Nico.
Hey, thank you. You want to speak at all?
Just here with St. Paul Fire, in solidarity with Minneapolis, here for justice for George.
So it's Minneapolis and St. Paul?
Yes.
And it's the Black Firefighters Association?
Yes. It's the Black Firefighters United. Yes, Black Firefighters United.
St. Paul
Black
and St. Paul.
Firefighters United. Where's Nick Davis?
Thank you.
He's with us. He's with us in spirit.
Would anybody else want to speak out here? Okay. Thank you. So you heard it's the Black Firefighters Association of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they took a knee.
Black firefighters out here supporting justice. We're out here. Everybody, turn the sound again.
And this is the street where George Floyd's hearse left. So this is Chicago Avenue and 15th. And if you know Minneapolis, or if you don't, George Floyd was murdered on 38th in Chicago. So literally only 23 blocks south from where we are standing.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, do you feel like, so this is Mayor R.T. Ryback. Thank you for stopping. I'm Nico from Unicorn Riot.
Hey, Nico.
Hi. So this is an amazingly somber moment, but also coming on a very, very tragic killing. We already see now some defunding. Can we go to the sidewalk? We already see now some defunding moves going on from the Minneapolis Public Schools and whatnot. Can you talk about just policing in general in Minneapolis?
I think it's time for a dramatic rethinking of what it means to be safe in a city and how a community can be in partnership. That's going to require some very, very different thinking about all of it. And I'm really dedicating all of what we do at the Minneapolis Foundation to try to help navigate that. It's going to be something that's different than what we know.
Yeah, I heard even the city council members are talking about how to disband the Minneapolis police. And I know at Minneapolis Foundation, you all are funding even youth programs and such. What if there was some kind of disbandment of the police? What would that look like as far as youth?
Well, I don't think it's up to a washed-up 65-year-old white guy to determine where the cops should be in this town. I do think what we need to do is to have an agenda that's about safety, and so the first dollars we put out to deal with that was with a youth-led initiative. Can you hear me through?
Yes, I think so. Yep.
And that's really where it's got to start. So we want to be a very aggressive partner, but it's going to take the whole community coming up with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That was Mr. R.T. Ryback, who was the ex-mayor of Minneapolis. He was the mayor not too long ago. Well, thank you. I'm Nico.
Nico Devin.
Devin.
We really appreciate it. This is the news. You're right on the ground, right with people, giving everyone a voice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Up on 15th do you know if 15th in Chicago?
There is people up there. I don't know if people are from here are going.
It seems like they might not be, but maybe.
Yeah, I don't think so for real, but maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, they want to take it live.
Could I step like 2 steps backwards? Yeah, thanks. So again, that's the Black Firefighters Association taking the knee in response to George Floyd's casket being driven by them.
You leaving again?
You know, and I understand why she's trying to bring energy, but at the same time,
Hi. Thank you. I'm Nico.
I know you're Nico.
What's your name? Fatima.
Yeah, I remember you. Way back.
Oh, word. Would you like to speak at all?
No, I don't do a camera, but I told this guys.
Okay.
I'm gonna buy a shirt.
Thank you. Oh, word. Thanks.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah. Do you want to be on film?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So were you here? Were you inside?
No, I was outside. I was chilling. You know, when they came out with his casket, we started cheering. You know, his name, say his name. You know, the whole hashtag Black Lives Matter, everything. You know.
How was that moment for you?
It was kind of painful just to see him coming out. The casket is beautiful, but just knowing that his body's resting through an unfortunate event, you know, it's really tragic.
That unfortunate and tragic event ripples through the nation and even the world.
Yes.
What does it feel? Are you from Minneapolis, or do you live here?
Yeah.
What does it feel like to be in the epicenter of what possibly could be bringing a lot of change?
Oh man, at first, chaotic, right? You know, looting, rioting, fires everywhere, precinct burning, and I was there, you know. So it was chaotic, but at first it was like revolutionary at the same time. It's kind of hard to put in words, but revolution is like being in the middle of a revolution. And it's like it wasn't televised for me. I was in there. I wasn't watching it on TV. Like we was there. So it was revolutionary in the sense of like it was empowering. It was a moment of change, and we all felt it. It was something that the citizens took control of. You know, not just being crazy, but being able to control our impact on society and having a ripple effect. And we knew what it was going to do. So having that impact was something powerful, life-changing, and it's altering a lot of people's lives. And that's, to me, that's the biggest momentum the world needed at this moment with the pandemic going on. We need something to uplift us, make us feel like there's something coming, you know, something good coming.
Yeah. Thank you for that. When it comes to the protests in general, a lot of times in uprisings or like revolutions, it hasn't really fulfilled itself afterwards.
Yeah.
A lot of the action has sort of been halted. Maybe a counterinsurgency methods by the United States government or whatnot has sort of stopped certain uprisings from creating lasting change. We do see now that some defunding of the police is now being mentioned a lot. Public services are stopping their partnerships with the police. Besides those few things, which are reform-based, that might show a little bit of a change. What do you hope to come in the future to prevent the loss of black bodies being stolen by the police?
I would say better training. I know we talked about this before with Jamar Clark. Better training, and you know, with as far as like the cameras, you know, being on at all times. You know, audio, all that stuff.
Not to cut you off, I don't want to be on camera.
Yeah, you can just say it in the audio.
I would say that, you know, to actually recruit the people who live in the community instead of getting these cops who live in Minnetonka and Edina and Eden Prairie, whatever suburb they're from, because, you know, there was research done that almost like above 90% of the Minneapolis police officers do not live in the community, so they're just coming here to work and to police the community they're completely disconnected from. So how do you expect a connection when we just view you as a killer? You know what I mean? So it needs to be from the community, because if he knew this, if he knew Mr. Floyd, or if he knew if the guy who killed Jamar Clark knew him, they didn't know him. They're disconnected from the community because they're not a part of the community. And even in their lives, when they were growing up, they viewed Minneapolis and St. Paul and those communities as the ghetto, the hood. Now you're coming to protect the hood. Of course you're going to come here scared. Of course you're going to run to your gun because you just remember everything from your training, you know, and then none of them ever get convicted. But I do have hope. I'm not gonna lie. I do have hope that this case is going to change a lot. And if this, you know, Minneapolis Police Department, if they don't really change because of this case, and if, you know, these cops do not get convicted, it's really gonna speak volume. It's really gonna speak volume because, you know, Muhammad Nur was convicted, but now there's a they're a different race than Muhammad Nur, let's be honest. You know, so what are they gonna do? There's a lot of heat on them. So I'm pretty sure they're strategizing or talking to each other. But we are seeing change, to be honest, from, you know, Mike Freeman being removed, you know, from petitions of, what's his name, Bob Crawl. You know, the community wants him out. So I think, you know, it sucks that, you know, the city had to be burned down. But, you know, everything that happened had to happen, you know, because Minneapolis always protests peacefully. Like, I've been to the Philando Castile, Jamar Clark. We always protest peacefully. Once you do not hear us, what do you expect? Honestly, Target is fine. I only feel bad for the minority-owned businesses. All these corporations that are here, the tire places, F all of it. I don't care. Like, I really do not care, and I hope the community rebuilds, and, you know, businesses that belong to the community are actually the people who rebuild that place. That's the change that I would really like to see.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything to add on?
Yeah, better police training, picking police officers within the community. Also donating to equal rights initiative that's going to fight for injustice in the judicial system, which grassroots community-based initiatives can't do. Maybe even recruiting some police officers might not even change that, but having these systematic laws, reforms that's going to punish these people when they actually commit a crime. If I kill somebody at a job and I go home and don't think I'm getting fired, look at what happened in Mike Brown. They didn't fire the officer at all. They didn't fire him for 3 years. 3 years, and, you know, and after that, then they fired him. But when Minneapolis did good, we fired him, fired the guy right away. But that's the good thing I can say about that. But aside from that, you know, I say donations to the initiatives, Equal Rights Initiative, on justice, judicial reforms, initiative that's going to help change and bring equal rights.
Supporting local media too, independent media, because I'm sick of all of the freaking corporate media here. They don't get in, and the first thing they say is, due to our safety, we're staying on the sidelines. That's why you're reporting fake shit. Excuse my language, you know? But I really appreciate it, because when I'm home, I'm always like tuning into Unicorn Riot on Twitter, on Instagram. I put it on my Instagram too, to support Unicorn Riot and independent local media, because they're not in here. They're here today because, you know, it's a calm day, but they were not there when people were protesting. They're literally like acting like something is going to happen to them, and that adds to the narrative as well. Exactly. It really does. Yeah.
That's a good point. Well, thank you for your time. Anything else you would want to add?
No, just for Floyd, you know, appreciate all the celebrities. We love all the attention we're getting in Minnesota and worldwide. But we have to keep fighting, and we got to vote. Vote, yes, people, vote in your judicial processes and all electoral processes. Please vote.
Vote and sign petitions too.
Yep, sign petitions and donate and volunteer. And be the voice of reasoning. And why BML, not AML? You gotta understand that. You gotta understand the history of racism to understand why BML and not AML.
Okay? Absolutely, not all life. No. We have to focus on Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Oh, BLM, not ALM. Oh, gotcha. I'm like, wait, okay, gotcha. Black Lives Matter, not all lives matter.
Yeah, when you edit the video, you put that in there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Appreciate you all. Hey, thanks. What's your name again?
CJ.
Yep. All right. Good to meet you. What's that? Fatima. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm Nico. Yeah. So you see the hearses. Some folks here. We're going to try to bring the bit rate up. Hold on 1 second. Hope to get you a better signal now. We're at 400. Thanks, man. Again, we're here live in Minneapolis. The funeral memorial service just got finished. We heard from ex-mayor R.T. Ryback just a minute ago. Right here. People are gathered around on the other side.
Thanks, sorry.
I'm gonna go back up in there.
I'm sorry. I had a beer this way from over there. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yo, you can call me if you need.
Oh, all the time.
You got my number?
They're hungry.
Anytime.
No, he's going up the ramp, Bruce. Bruce. No. Bruce is going up the ramp. Yeah, feeding the crew. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Trying to get to the other side. Swing through.
Pass, media?
Yeah. Thank you. Were you able to get inside? Yeah, it's wild. They had the list up 3 days ago, evidently. Yeah. They tried to come at me like, oh, we had it up for 3 days. I'm like, and? Like, how? That's what I was saying. I was like, how did you all get the invites out? They're like, well, we had to do this. Where's going for school? So I guess you gotta be on that media tip, you know? Listen to Kima speaking up here.
It is not an option anymore. We have to demand justice.
Yeah, Wintana right here. How you doing?
Can I just, not to even say a moment, talk about this moment. I want to talk about the importance of Unicorn Riot. I think that they have been the only institution that has been authentically and honestly reporting on the situation here. And if y'all have been here since day one, and like I ask that everybody, if you're watching this, take out your phone and donate to Unicorn Riot, because they have been there since the very first moment. I have been doing this for a decade, and Nico has been there with me. And so I ask y'all to donate to Unicorn Riot. Yes, donate to the institutions and the families, but also donate to the independent media that are not allowing them to get away with murdering us. And so I can speak on the moment. I have been, but I have to just talk to the people watching Unicorn Riot. It's just they play a role in justice. We all have a lane. There are lawyers, there are medics, there are protesters, and then there's the media. And so that's just my personal call. I just have to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you, of course.
Love you, bro. Love you. Wow. It's a lot of love that we receive out here. We definitely do our thing to try to bring you all the community's voice.
Till we win! Till we win! Till we win!
Till we win! Till we win! Till we win!
No. Is it good? Also, the medical examinators often gave us a different version. You know, the cover is real. Here. Now, it sucks to be a black man here in the state of Minnesota. Definitely sucks. You know this is going to happen under the watch that we have right now. It sucks to be a black man.
That'd be great.
It's like a wound that's been ripped. And y'all seen Luke.
You got some good pictures in there. I saw you were there. I know you got some amazing stuff.
Right? I see people who didn't get a $1,200 stimulus package. Y'all seen Luke. How many peaceful protests have we had? Philando Castile died in 2016.
They didn't hear what?
Every year for the past 6 years, peacefully. Every year. And now all of a sudden y'all talking about it. How long do you expect for people to be peaceful when we keep seeing you put a piece of steel up to our brother's head? We keep seeing you putting your knee in our brother's neck.
Thank you. Is it yours?
So what I'm going to tell y'all,
hey, since you want this next?
Yes, kid.
Who got your back?
I got your back.
Who got your back?
I got your back.
Who got your back?
I got your back.
Who got your back?
I got your back. Who got your back? I got your back. Who got your back? I got your back. Who got your back? I got your back. Who got your back? I got your back. Who got your back? I got your back. Who got my 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 back? I got your back.
We got to put some accountability pieces into legislation, all across the board. And I know it's all right to protest. Wait, it's all right to protest. The new protest is the march out folks to the state and move some of these people out.
You want this next?
30 years. It's time for them to go. The other piece is you got to stick your ballot in that box. I don't care if the vote don't matter to you, the vote matter to us. We need y'all to vote.
Black Party.
Vote, 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 vote. We need to get this Black Party. Come on, bro. It's your
Just like you guys.
My brother George Washington was killed in Wilmer, Minnesota.
Yes. They tried to cremate the body.
They tried to cremate
to hide evidence.
The ME line. We had to get our own autopsy. We had to take our brother from the state and take him back to South Carolina because they tried to cover up.
What's his name?
What is his name? George E. Washington Sr.
I know about that.
In Wilmer, Minnesota.
I know
Killed
about
him in
that.
his cell.
I
Nobody will remember the case because they didn't have enough visibility.
No, we remember it. I remember it.
They dragged him out of the car because he was with a white woman.
Sitting in his car.
I know.
They dragged him out of there and killed him in the jail.
Swept it under the rug.
They did. Put it under the rug.
Y'all don't get to us fast enough to try to get a praise.
Hey, come on, this brother got something to say, y'all. Come on in.
I'm gonna say this right here. We've been out here day in, day and night. I started the day after my big bro passed away. I ain't been out here every single day since the 25th, and they wanted to cover up a murder. And we said we ain't going in if George can't go in. Every day I led 1,100 people through these streets, and I raised a lot of money, and we put it to the community. One thing we ain't gonna stand there and stand inside because George can't go inside. Every day media asks me, when is y'all gonna be done? Until justice has been served. That's right. That's when we gonna be done. Every day we've been on 38th in Chicago. We in marched through Lake Street and everything. You know the difference between looters and protesters is they know that looters is the ones that's tired and they ain't taking this shit no more. Protesters with peace. You gotta kill fire with water, and that's exactly what we is right now. At the end of the day, everybody comes to 38th in Chicago and say we feel safe. The police want to keep racism and control in place. And I say, if y'all want to break that, it started with us today. We got to stand up for what we want. George told me one thing. He said, you got to lead the youth and the community. He said, you got leadership for you. And I know one thing you're going to do is change. And so they took a piece of me, but they took him. One thing we got to do is keep marching. We broke curfew, we've been shot at, we've been tear gassed, but one thing we do is go inside. Because we breaking the thing. We in third world civil rights right now. And we ain't gonna be quiet for nobody. Come on. My mom said she afraid because my face became on every fucking news. But one thing, this ain't new to me. We gonna stand up, they covered too much, they killed my brother in 2016, and they swept that under the rug. And we ain't going no more. I couldn't let that shit happen with Jordan. So every day we out there, you go 38th to Chicago, we are turning into 38th and George. That's what it's going to be called, 38th and George. We going to break the alphabet order. It's 38th and George now.
Hey, bro, guess what? I got your back.
You got my back?
Who got his back?
I got your back.
I got your back.
I got your back.
Who got your back?
I got your back.
Who got his back?
I got your back.
Who got his back?
I got your back.
So is we gonna be quiet?
No.
Is we gonna be quiet?
No.
Is we gonna go home?
No.
And can George go home?
No.
Then we can't go home.
All I want to say at this moment right now,
come on now.
I want everybody to know that Minnesota has been chosen to lead the nation for justice.
They've been watching.
Right now, Minnesota, do not go back to your houses. This is the moment right now.
Yes.
The protest is the blood of change.
Yes.
The protest is the blood of change. And in this moment right now, we gotta change the system. It is broke from the police department to the prosecutor to the laws that are unjust on the books. This entire system is broke, and we can prove it by the delay of justice that we saw. So I want you to know, this moment chose us. This moment chose us. We didn't choose it, and we are on the clock right now in Minnesota. And I'm talking to my white allies. Do not go back to your house. Do not feel comfortable, because we live in fear. We live in fear. I want you to know, until the job is done, don't go back to your house. We're going to need to protest. And I warn people, we are not going to accept watered down bullshit that's going to be presented. And we're not going to have people who don't know anything about criminal justice to lead us. We got people in this city who have been doing this work for so long, and we're going to follow that lead until we get justice by any means necessary.
That's Jelani Hussein from Canada.
If you don't get it, shut it down.
We don't get it.
We don't get it.
Shut it down.
We don't get it.
Shut it down.
We don't get it.
Shut it
clock. Punch in right now until justice is here.
Jailani Hussein from CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations, Minnesota. There's an independent streamer, King Demetrius. Listen Media, listenmedia.org? Yeah, listenmedia.org. King got inside the memorial service. What was the somber atmosphere like?
The atmosphere was powerful, and the way I looked at it, Reverend Al Sharpton said powerful words. Also, the attorney Crump for the family said powerful words. Everybody that said powerful words. But one thing we can't forget is this individual name. George Floyd did, he had put not only Minnesota on the map, he had made Minnesota relevant. We made sure that Minnesota was relevant when Philando Castile was tragically killed live. But this here, they talked about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee, but this officer was supposed to be peace officer taking the knee on a brother's neck for 8 minutes. This is totally unacceptable. So a nation of people came out. I will be giving my footage over to my brother Nico so he can do what he do to it. And I was closed up, and they was tripping. One thing I didn't like about what happened, they had people sending them certain people emails. There's a lot of independent journalists, photographers such as myself, such as Nico, such as any other people. They don't get those emails. We just show up because we're always boots on the ground. I felt that very discriminatory for us to be right here in our grassroots with what we built our platform at, for us not to be in there. I luckily got in there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got in there. So my footage is going to go to this brother, Nico Unicorn Riot. Let them do what they do. Here's what's happening in your neck of the hood. Love my brother.
Man, thanks, bro. Love you too, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, let's talk. Here's some families here. Ashley Quinones, Brian Quinones' wife. Brian Quinones was killed in September. It's Toshira Garraway. This is Irma Burns, one of the Burns sisters, Jamal Clark's sister.
What's his name? They had the middle class elements, they had the celebrities and the media.
This right here is Mel Reeves. We'll talk to Mel Reeves in a minute. A long time columnist with Minnesota Spokesman Reporter, a long time activist here in the Minneapolis area since Tycel Nelson in the early 90s. He's been fighting against police killings, so we'll talk to him in a minute once he's done. And thank you all for joining. We're here live outside of North Central University in Minneapolis. There was a memorial for George Floyd, and that memorial was attended by a lot of celebrities, and also was sort of minimally attended as coronavirus continues to take on effects here in America and the world, and it limited the amount of people who could show up due to social distancing. And as you heard from King Demetrius, there was invites that were sent out on the email list, and it wasn't a very inclusive process to get inside. And so the main grassroots independent journalists like Unicorn Riot found difficulty trying to get in. It was more so for the other folks, the corporate entities, and so we were able to be in the media room and give you the stream. So thank you all for joining that if you watched. And right now, again, we're outside. Do you want to talk real quick about Jamar at all?
We can.
All right. Yeah, so can you say who you are and then what happened to your brother?
Okay, I'm Danielle Awake, and my brother is Jamar Clark. He was brutally knocked down and choked, and people. They had shot him because they thought he was dead when after choking him. They thought he was dead. So they needed an excuse and shot him in the head. And the bullet came through his eyes. My brother didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve that at all. And I'm letting y'all know right now, you're going to see this face, and you're going to continue to see this face. Silence is a killer, and I no longer am going to be silent. No more for my brother. I'm out here. Jamar Clark, we fighting for you, baby, as well as the rest.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
What did it mean to you that the community came out for 18 days outside of the 4th Precinct fighting for justice for your brother?
That means a lot. And not only that it means a lot, I was out there. I was in it with them. I was out there in it with them. I didn't understand the concept of what was going on because there was so much going on at that time. But I was in the movement because of my brother. I was in the movement. So therefore, I commend all my people who done what they did, you know? And it was peaceful. It was peaceful. But at the same time, when they did this to George, it was the boil over. It was the ultimate. Y'all killed that man in front of millions and millions of people. And y'all think y'all gonna get away with that? Wrong answer. Wrong answer. He's gonna be the justice for all. God is mad. God is mad and he's tired. And y'all need to stop doing what you're doing because he's gonna make you. We're gonna get some justice.
Take him down. One last question. 5 years now, almost 5 years, coming up on November 15. Does it get any easier for you?
It don't get easier because my brother's not here. It can't get easier. My thing is we have a movement. And as far as in our people out here and helping our young youth, we got a program that we're trying to help young youth, which is called Project Jamar Saving Me. And we want this to try to get these youth off the street. We want them to have a place to go to hang out instead of the streets. We want this because we love our kids. We love our men. We love them all. And we don't want nothing like this to happen. And again, it happened. It happened. So we got to push this for our people to get justice so that we could build for them, so that we can have places for them to go, better education, things, everything that they need to place them, to keep them off the streets. We need to do this. We're tired. We're tired. I'm like cracking at the voice because I'm tired, but I'm still gonna fight. It can take the last breath of me, but I'm still gonna fight. Yeah.
Jamar Clark's sister. No, yeah,
this dude is place quiet. I've been looking for you.
Yep, I've been looking for you.
I appreciate you braving. I saw you one night. I was like, I tried to call you. I was like, Nico, get out of there, brother. If they're going to target you. If they're targeting the mainstream people, you know they're going to target you.
Right, right. You've been around for a long time. You've also been fighting police terror since Tysel Nelson and maybe before.
Right.
Minneapolis is contentious past, very, very contentious past. Just, can you talk about where we're at right now? Anything that comes to your mind? Just go ahead, because I want to hear from you, and I think our audience wants to hear from you as well.
Well, yeah, you know, you've interviewed me quite a bit. People know who I am. My name is Mel Reeves. I got a dual role now. I'm actually the editor of the Black Press here, the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. Give us a shout out at www.spokesman Recorder. I know I'm doing a little ad here real quick, but that's for a reason. Because, you know, the paper went through the pandemic, and it's struggling. So when you go there, you'll see we cover the hell out of everything. You'll see a donate button. If you got a few dollars you want to give us, do that. Now, personally, I have a blog called Fight the Power Journal. Just Fight the Power Journal, one word. I write political stuff. People know me. What I try to do is make a political analysis and interpretation of the events around us. And my last piece was on pointing out that people came out in the streets, right, risking their health, right? They risked their health and their life. to protest the pandemic of police violence. That's right. Police violence is a pandemic, and it always has been. So where we are now, on some small level, is we're at a tipping point. People have had it. I mean, the pot has been boiling for a while. What the riots were about, what the uprising was about, is that folks were upset, and they didn't know how to take it out. They didn't know how to channel that energy. But like I've been telling the young people, you're in a war. So when you're in a war, you got to get prepared. You've never seen an army not have basic training, right? So that means that the young people, you got to pick up the book. You got to understand this system. You got to understand this social, political, economic system called capitalism. You got to understand it so you know how to push back against it, right? You got to read and understand what other people have done to fight them. Read what the Panthers did, right? Read a little bit of Marxism, because what the Marxists do in the Communist Manifesto, they help you understand this system. If you're black, read your African history, read African American history, so you know how we got here. Because there's a long line from slavery to here. On some level, things haven't changed that much. When we were enslaved, they killed. They put their knee on people's necks and choked them to death. In fact, we were more protected when we were in slavery because we were valuable. They had to pay for us, so they weren't so quick to destroy their property. Imagine that, human beings as property. So we've come a ways, but we've not come far enough, right? After the Civil War, we were free for a little bit during Reconstruction. People need to know that at one point, we could vote. That's right. You could walk down the street. We had about a 10, 12-year period where we had all our rights. The U.S. was actually incorporating us. But then there was a backlash, because every time you push against the system, they pushed back. And so they tried to re-enslave us. You need to know this history. This is how we got here. They re-enslaved us. They used vagrancy laws, right, to put us in jail and make us work for free. So you got I saw the people walking away as I was telling them. They said, don't walk away, y'all. This is the stuff you need to know so you know what you're up against. If you read your history, you know that when you push them, they're going to push back. That's why you got to fight intelligently. Now we've got their attention. So now what we got to do, folks got to study. They got to understand that they're going to tell you, oh, we can reform this a little bit. We'll change this. We'll tinker with that. They're going to say vote. So then you got to study them because they got tricks. They'll say vote. The problem with that is voting has never changed anything. Just go and do your research. It's never changed a daggum thing. You know what's changed things? Like they'll say, oh, in the civil rights movement, you know, the Congress voted. No, they didn't. They voted after people were in the street. When they were sitting in Congress, they were looking out the window just like now. People were marching by. And they said, oh, Lord, if people keep marching, if they keep on marching, they may not upset this thing, you see. And so they'll try to tell you that, well, protests don't work. Go to vote. Well, who are you going to vote for? Joe Biden said, you got to vote for me if you're black, and I ain't got nothing for you. It's like, hold on, time out, brother. You're not promising me anything? You're just saying, I need to vote for you because you're not Trump? That doesn't make any sense. That's not a democratic system. That's a hustle. And so that's why I've been advocating that you try a third way. Trump said it earlier. What do we got to lose? We had Barack Obama in, and black people lost more wealth than they ever did. You got to figure out the game. It's a hustle. You have a Democratic president, we catch hell. You have a Republican president, we catch hell. We go back to Democrat, we catch hell. You go to Republican. Common sense started kicking in after a while that maybe both of those parties don't have our best interests. And you got to try. I know it seems like I'm a crazy old dude talking about some revolutionary stuff, but I'm telling the truth. You can't keep doing the same thing. You know, they say if you keep on doing the same thing over and over and you expect different results, they say something's wrong with you. You might be out of your mind. So as a people, and I'm not just talking to black folks, I'm talking to everyday, regular, working class people, everybody. We know this is true, right? We elect one of them, and they act like they ain't never seen us before, right? We can't get the stuff that we want, and everybody knows, everybody in this country wants to end the police violence. Even conservative folks, right? How come we can't get an administration and end it, right? Everybody wants health care, right, young? Don't y'all want health care? We want universal, just like every other country, right? Everybody wants free education. Why can't we get it? Because they have their own agenda. It's our job to push our own agenda. And so the reason I went through all that is because what this is a tipping point. People are in the street, yes, because they're upset about what happened to George, but they feel in their bones that there's something rotten at the core of this system. They saw it with the pandemic. They had our mothers and our dads on the front line of the pandemic and wouldn't give them personal protection equipment. Am I right there, you newsman? Am I right? That's right. That's right. They're so corrupt, they wouldn't even give personal protection equipment to the nurses and the healthcare people that have to take care of you. Think about that, right? That's how callous they are. That's how insensitive they are, right? They were cavalier with our lives. I know people who work for American Airlines who said that people had COVID on the job, and the company said, shh, don't tell anybody. Now, who does that kind of thing, right? Amazon, the richest man in the world, his company was running around letting people get sick with COVID. They had it in the factory and they knew it. They let these people die. This system let people die. You can't forget this. So this people out in the streets, because that's in the back of our mind. This thing is corrupt. And so what we have here, brother, and I've been doing this for a while, fighting police violence, all kind of injustices, and I tell you, boy, these old eyes are pretty happy these days, because I see what other people don't see. Because we're not gonna keep coming out here without doing our homework. You know this. When I first came out, I hadn't done my homework. When I came out, I said, hold on. I came out and fought police violence. I go, what the hell? Why does this keep happening so much? So you know what I did? I studied what the police's role really was. You know how people come out and say, well, we just got good cops and bad cops, good cops. So I say, okay, that makes sense. But hold on, time out. If you know you got bad cops, how come you're not getting rid of them? So I said, it's a trick. They're just saying that. The good cops and the bad cops are part of the program, right? And then they'll tell you, well, it's just, we've got some, now they're trying to kneel with you, right? So they kneel with us during the day and beat us at night. They always have tricks for you. You see what I'm saying? If we commit a crime, we go right to jail. They say to us, oh, we gotta take a look at it. Everybody saw them kill that man. There's nothing to think about, right? But we got to get out here in the street. Think about the system we live on. You live under a system that ain't gonna just give you justice, right? Now, when it comes to us, Pookie and them, if they do something wrong, they handcuff and go to jail. But when they do something wrong, we got to wait. We got to get out in the street, take time away from our job, take time away from our favorite TV show, right? To come out in the street to make them do what any human being would do. If you ran society, you would have them in jail. That's what I tell people. If you ran society, you would have folks in jail. If you ran a society, we would have health care. If you ran society, you'd make sure all the kids had the education they need, right? If you ran society, you wouldn't be blockading countries. You wouldn't be dropping bombs on folks. So that's what this is about, and that's what this has to be about. Building a society of human beings for and by human beings, brother. That's what we're trying to do. That's what I just said, sister. That it's the whole system. That's why we have that chant. The whole damn system is guilty as hell. The people who put that knee on you, on your neck and kill you, if they'll kill you, they'll lie to you. If they'll kill you, they'll steal from you when you go to work. If they'll kill you, they'll discriminate against you because of your sexual orientation. If they'll kill you, they'll discriminate against you because of your color. If they'll kill you, they'll discriminate against you because of your sex. If they'll kill you, they'll do all kind of stuff to you. And so this system, what this protest should do, and that's why they're afraid. Don't let nobody fool you. The reason they jailed them cops was because of the protests. I know the Attorney General got on TV and said, no, it wasn't because of the protests. He knows in his heart that that's not true. It was because the only reason that they're in jail is because of the protests. And the only way we're going to get a conviction is if we keep protesting. Now, I've been out here long enough. Okay, brother. I've been out here long enough. So I know what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to stop talking because, I can get this rap for a while.
Can I ask you a couple questions real quick?
Go ahead.
So you said a lot about just like educating yourself, moving forward, maybe not voting, but like getting in the streets continuously, right? And making that change. There's a lot of revolutions or uprisings, maybe not revolutions. There's a lot of uprisings that have happened even throughout the world that have been sustained, but then at the end they haven't had lasting impacts.
Right.
What is a way that this uprising here can have the lasting impact?
That's a very good question. This is why I talked about preparing. This is why, like your sister heard me and she was saying, hey, it's the whole system. So this is why. So this is why when you organize, you begin to do. In the old days, remember they did teach-ins, and we're going to start doing this. So if people are interested enough to come out, then I always say to people, take another step. If you took the step to come out of your house and come to the protest, take another step and figure out why we're protesting. Then take another step and figure out how we can stop having the protest. Then take another step and figure out how we can make a society that's around our needs and take take another step and get with other folks, you see, get with other people who are like-minded, because see, there's some people who are going to be against us. That's what that right-wing protest is about. Those are our class enemies. Those are the people who are going to side with this evil government. Oh yeah, when it gets down to it, Malcolm X said it. He said, I think there's going to be a clash, but it's not going to be a racial clash. He said it's going to be a clash between those who want to end this system of oppression and exploitation versus those who want to continue it. And he's absolutely right. So what we've got to do, brother, is unlike in the past, we got to begin to organize ourselves. Like all the groups we think about from the past, even the civil rights movement, when you look behind the scene, they organize themselves. They plan. There's a strategy. I keep telling young people, there's a strategy. You know, some people think you can just come, that anybody can protest. You can just come out. You know, as you know, there's a lot of organizing that goes in, a lot of strategizing that goes into it, right? Tactics are important. You got to be smart, because if you're not smart, they'll just, you know, they'll make you look like they've done with the riots. They started talking about the riots and uprising and stopped talking about George Floyd. So I hope that answers your question. You got to organize. You cannot skip this step. Just like an army, if you're going to go fight, you got to have some basic training, and we do too. If you want to organize a protest, find people who've been organizing. A lot of people want to kick the old schoolers to the curb. Well, and that makes sense, because some of the old schoolers are Uncle Toms and misleaders. But this here old schooler has been a revolutionary for a long time. So you don't kick the revolutionaries to the curb, right? Because they're older. You know, you kick folks to the curb because they're backwards and they're in your way, right? But the people who can help you move forward, you don't have to agree with them. You have to agree with me, but you can find me and say, bro, how do we do this? And I will show you. I will give you everything I know. We got to stop doing that foolishness, ignoring, pushing people to the side because they're a little older. That's not intelligent. If they agree with you, that's your colleague, that's your ally. And the other beauty of this protest, excuse me, is that it's multiracial. If you look out, right, you see white, black, Asian, everybody's out here, right? Why is that? And people are like, how come so many white people are? There's a problem here. It's because they feel the boot of this system too. They see it, and that's because they're human beings. We're all humans. Everybody saw what happened to George Floyd. Every human being with a heart said, that ain't right. And that's what brought people out here. Everybody knows that ain't right, and they know deep down inside that, wow, we live in a system that does that kind of thing. They're coming out because they say, we don't want that to happen anymore. That's why the protests kept going. Look, if you call a protest right now, thousands of people will show up. You know why? Because folks know that it's time. It's time to do something. They're tired of watching it. Some folks, every time you turn on the TV, there's some black person being beaten down, Ahmaud Arbery being run down and shot and killed, right? Breonna Taylor shot in her bed as she's sleeping. Folks are tired of it, and it's not just the black folks that are tired of it. Everybody's tired of it, and so that's why this thing is sustained itself. What you have to do, what y'all have to do, is find your place in it. Find something. I know some people are scared to get on the front line. Then you don't have to be on the front line. Help with the water. Help with this strategy, right? If you're a medical person, help with that. Like how we set it up here. We had a little bit of something, everything. So everybody can't do all the work, but you got to come out, right? But find what your strength is, you know? If you can teach, learn this stuff so you can teach, you know what I'm saying? If you got some skills, teach people those skills, got some technical skills, because that's what we're going to need, because we're going to have to create an army out of our people, because we're at war. Make no mistake about it. George Floyd is dead. Ahmaud Arbery is dead. Breonna Taylor is dead because Philando Castile is dead. Jamar Clark, Terrence Franklin is dead. They're all dead. Freddie Gray is dead. Eric Garner is dead because we are at war. The trick is to convince us that we ain't at war. You ever see somebody, you ever have somebody jump on you? The only way you can get them off of them is what? The only way you can get somebody off is what? You got to push them off, right? You got to fight. If somebody hits you, you got to hit them back. And that's the other thing that people are losing their fear. That's the other significant thing. You know, you see people pushing back on, well, they have a right to. When somebody lays your hand on you, the only way you let people beat you down is because you don't think you're any good. That's right. People beat you down. And the reason black folks get beat down a lot of times, because in our minds, we've kind of internalized white supremacy, and we kind of have this self-hatred. But when you start to stand up and think you somebody hits you, you hit them back because you realize you're a human being. All human beings stand up for themselves, and they're going to try to tell us you got a right to defend yourself against the cops. You may have to suffer the consequences, but if enough of us stand up and defend ourselves, they will stop putting their hands on us. I guarantee you that. And then we will begin to have the kind of sign of society that we can all live and breathe freely in. Thanks, brother, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Did you still want to talk? Can I videotape you? I don't have to. Unicorn Riot. We're independent.
Where you from?
We're so thankful for you guys'
thank you.
coverage.
Thank
Like,
you.
I feel like, oh, no, I was just making a comment. I'm not, like, I just feel like there's so much bias in this. It's like, it's so discouraging because so much of the protesting has been so peaceful. Like, I've gotten to see so much, like, solidarity. Like, we had people from the Native and Indigenous community come. I'm sorry. Why don't you go first?
I'll just quickly say.
Oh, okay.
Because I gotta go actually live right down the street. You asked the question why the revolution hasn't stuck.
Yeah, in the past, like, why have they stuck, and what are steps to?
It would flare up, and then it will disappear, and then it will get another boost, and it will disappear again. Personally, I think it's because of the message itself, not really anything to do with anything else. I think it's just the population, most citizens don't agree with these revolutions. That's why they're not sticking around. They might have a hold for a little bit, but eventually most people realize this is not really the life they want to live with this kind of revolution. That's my personal opinion, but I think if something is true enough, more people will go for it, and I just think a lot of this is very misguided, and a lot of identity politics is the reason why people move to different sections. You know what I mean? Instead of uniting, even on this topic itself, instead of just talking about police brutality in general, which affects white people, Asian people, Hispanic people, all types, we're just focusing on black people. So it pushes people into a corner. So that way people push back instead of seeing that this is something that affects everybody. So that's just my input to that.
Oh yeah, thank you for sharing. Within that, is there ways that you can recommend that you would see a better way for other people to not worry about identity politics and to be more intersectional in the movement?
I think if people are really honest about their issues in general, truthful, speak about it in a matter of fact instead of trying to cozy up to any particular group and just speak on the real issues that is causing interactions with cops between different groups of the population. And if we can get to the root of it, we can try to solve a lot of the injustice that happens among corrupt cops. I think if we have less interactions with cops in a conflictual situations, obviously that's just rational, less likely to be harmed if you're doing the right things. Most of the time, I'm not saying anybody is not affected because they're doing the wrong thing. There's good people that are wrongfully abused by the cops for sure, but overall I think the message should be individuals leading better lives, making better decisions instead of solely deciding on the government to solve every issue in the world. I think more government actually causes more divide among each other, which is what I see a lot happening. I think if right now, people are like, it's only Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, and then quick to point fingers, you're a racist, you're a bigot, all of that. It just makes people like me not want to even speak about what I think, because even as a black person, people would think I'm a racist, I don't like black people. I'm like, that's just stupid, period. Black as it can get, so when people don't speak honestly and they want to go around the truth, that's what I think causes a lot of the division and lack of actually solving any issues. And I think that's what happens with a lot of revolutions, is people don't really believe it. They really don't connect with it. That's why it's not successful. It'll flare up and then this will go away. And every few years, the same thing will happen. I think most people that I speak with agree that what happened to Floyd was outrageous.
I grew up in the 80s too, and you weren't lying about nothing you were saying.
Yeah, the talk about it in the media, just focusing on one group. Actually, I'm offended as a black person that every year we're just focusing on black people all the time, as if we're the most vulnerable people. We're not strong. We're very smart. We're capable. And there are white people that are abused by cops and shot in the wrong way completely without any instigation. So I think we have to be honest about the issues that affect everybody. That way we can get everyone else on board.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Got the little dog. Yeah, hold on. You were talking about media bias. You want to continue that, or just media in general? And then could I ask you a question after that? Okay.
I was just saying I'm thankful. I didn't know about Unicorn Riot until all of this happened, and a couple of my friends told me about it and watched some videos, and I was just really thankful. I don't know where to look. Do I look at you?
Oh, that's fine. We look wherever you're comfortable.
Okay, great. I was just really thankful for the way that you guys were covering it, and really like from like the standpoint of like the people that are actually involved that are protesting, and because I feel like there's been so much peaceful protesting that's been happening, and so much solidarity from so many different communities of different ethnicities in our city. So I was at one protest last week, and there was a dance that was done by the Native and Indigenous community, and it was really beautiful, and it was incredible to see a group of people who've been so hurt and so they've been robbed by the government, they've been killed by the government, so much awful stuff has happened to that community, that group of people, and Little Earth is just over that way, so like they're here, we see them, they're really horribly affected by COVID and all of these other things. So I feel like of the different ethnicities that have been like affected by systemic racism, like Native and Indigenous people are like, they're down there with Black people, you know? And so it was incredible, like an incredible act of solidarity for them to come down and do that, like with them having their own things. Like we should be out there protesting for the missing and murdered Indigenous women. Like where are we for them? And so I feel like one of the biggest things that I have really felt convicted about during this whole time is just like the importance of like solidarity, like within marginalized groups of people. So like they're out here for us, we need to be out there for them. Like the Hmong community, who has also been, you know, victim of police brutality, they were out there. I was at a protest in St. Paul, and they were there representing, they were speaking, they were like chanting with us. Like it was just really beautiful to see that, and I felt like I just really want to be supportive of the other groups of people who have come and stood with us in the middle of this hardship. And so I'm just thankful that you guys have been, I feel like you guys have been really covering a lot of the peaceful protesting, and a lot of the media I've seen has just like focused so much on like the rioting, which is happening by a small group of people. A lot of them are outsiders, and a lot of them are like white supremacists and anarchists, which is not what the majority of this has been. And so it's been encouraging to see like coverage of that. And yeah, it makes me hopeful that at the end of this, like George Floyd will not be remembered by the rioters and the looters and the white supremacists and the anarchists. He'll be remembered by all of these people who are out here protesting. And you know, again, I'm not like, I shouldn't say again, I never said it the first time, but Black people who are rioting and looting, like this is what happens when our lives are not taken seriously. I don't condone violence, but I'm not going to judge people who are hurting and who are being killed, but for doing things, for, you know, shutting it down, for burning buildings, because like, I mean, if we're not going to be hurt anyway, like what hope is there? Like what hope is the white world giving us anyway, you know? So I mean, I don't think it's the, you know, the right way, but is it effective? Yes, it has been. It absolutely has been historically. And so I don't know, it's a hard time, and I just feel like it's important to recognize that it's like a lot of what's happening has been super peaceful, and I want that to be known by the world. So.
Anything else you'd want to share?
I don't know. I guess like people have been talking about this too, and I guess everybody has a different perspective, and I think that's an important thing to recognize, just like the young lady that you spoke with a moment ago. Black people are not a monolith. We all have different thoughts about, you know, what should happen, how the government should be involved, whether they should be involved in change. you know, what the state is of black people, like in their own minds and hearts, how they feel about what's going on. I've talked to a lot of different, you know, black people who have all along the spectrum, you know, and like for me, like my own process, like I've grown up in a lot of white space, and so like in the last 2 years, I've really kind of started to deconstruct a lot of the things that I was taught and a lot of the internalized racism, as the gentleman that you were speaking with earlier was talking about. Like, I had a lot of Uncle Tom in me, and I was taught to believe a lot of things that were really oppressive to me, but I didn't realize that. And so, like, my waking up has been, you know, really painful, because you start to look around and you feel like, for the longest time, the white world was my comfort, because that's what I knew. That's what I was around all the time, like my church, like, you know, my friends. And when I started to recognize and to see myself, because I feel like white people tend to think of themselves very individualistically, right? Because, like, you know, it's like you pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. It's your hard work that gets you where you want to go. If somebody does something to you, it's because of something that you did personally, not because of how you and your people are treated. But the black people don't have that privilege. You know, we can't think in terms of, like, you know, us as singular people, because so much of what affects us is systemic, right? So the way we're treated in the hospital when mothers go to deliver their babies, and, you know, we have such a high mortality rate because they're not believed when they go into labor and they're saying, I'm experiencing a lot of pain, please, can you come look at me? Can you come check me out? Like, they're not believed, and they die. They die when they're supposed to be bringing life into this world. Like, what is that, you know? And so I just think that we're all in different places, and, you know, I'm figuring all of this stuff out, and, like, I'm coming to realize that, like, yeah, everyone has a different opinion on what should be done, and I think it's important to listen to everybody, you know, everyone, especially, like, right now, like, listening to minority voices talking about things that affect them. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm getting lost and rambling in a lot of...
Thank you for sharing. That's really deep, though. Just the conditioning of white supremacy and how it impacts you in general. You just said it. You have to deconstruct. That process is a long time. So I'm white. I'm a white male. I've had to deconstruct decades and decades, right? I still work on it continuously, right? And so it's a hell of a process, but I've never obviously been on that side of things. And so it's really interesting to hear that, and I really appreciate you sharing it, because I know that's something that's deep inside you, and to share that is probably not easy.
Yeah, you know, I think, and I feel like I'm trying to find my voice. That's the other thing, and, like, my own process is that, like, I know, like, I don't think you're ever done deconstructing, and especially because, you know, from the time I was 6 to now I'm 25, I just turned 25, like, it's only in the last, like, 2 years that I've actually started doing, like, a lot of intense, like, work in myself to really, like, start to, like, do reading, right? So I grew up, you know, going to schools where, you know, a lot of the books that we read were from, you know, white perspectives. And so, you know, you have white authors teaching you everything, teaching you about this nation's history, teaching you about theology, teaching you about everything. And you never hear from people who, like the other side, right? You never hear from the marginalized people who were suffering under the regime of America. Like, how do we get to be so great? Like, what about the people who, you know, had to die so that this country could be so great, right? Because, like, I feel like we're stepping on skeletons everywhere we go. There's been so much death, so much, like, destruction that's been caused, and, like, you never hear about it. Like, I didn't hear about the Japanese internment camps until I was a junior in high school. I should have learned about that ages ago, you know, and I took a class when I was in college called American Studies, and, you know, it was during that class that I really started to understand, like, all of the different minority groups that have been affected as this nation, like, grew to become what it is now. And so, like, it's so important to recognize and learn that. But, like, I can't be a helpful person in my community if I haven't deconstructed the things that I was taught. Because if I'm doing that, I'm coming into black space that is, like, black space is centering blackness, right? And I'm bringing in what I've been taught, right? Which is to center whiteness. So if I come into that space and I say all of these these things that are just causing more harm and more trauma to people, I'm not being helpful. So I feel like part of my work as a black person who has lived in white space so long is to deconstruct my whiteness and to come alongside and to elevate the voices of people who have been speaking about these things for years. I'm not trying to make myself like seem like an expert, because I'm not. Like I'm humbled by the fact that there's so much that I don't know, and I have so much learning to do, and I will have so much learning to do for the rest of my life. There's a way in which, like, you know, it's not like I haven't had experiences as a black person, but I was taught to read my experiences in a particular way. So I feel like even part of my work is just like thinking back to like, oh wow, this thing happened and now I can see why that's racist, or this thing was said to me and I just like was like, oh, they just, you know, made a mistake, or they didn't mean that, or, you know, it was just, and realizing, no, that was actually racially motivated and that was wrong, and this person should have never said that to me. I should have never been treated this way. I should have never, you know, like I went to college and there was a class that I was the only black person, and it was like it was like the only section of time where we were actually reading like black authors, but it was about like the period of time from Reconstruction up until like the Civil Rights Movement. And so like that was the only time that we read black authors, was like when we were, you know, reading about like our enslavement and then our being set free, but then all the things that, you know, we weren't really free. So like learning about all of those things, and I was having to like process that in an all-white room. Like I never should have been in that space. I should have never been expected to be. And the fact that my school didn't realize that showed me how much they centered whiteness. I didn't recognize that at the time, but later on as I thought about it, and somebody else was just like, that was not okay. And I was like, you're right, that wasn't okay. And just all of the, like I started just thinking about all these like instances, like things that happened, and I was like, that was wrong. And so I feel like we all have work to do, and I think, you know, as black people, we're in different places, like I said, and what we think about things. But I feel like for me, my role is to elevate the voices of black brothers and sisters who have been speaking about these things, and to support them in whatever ways I can, financially, by like continuing to say the things that they've said, giving them credit for what they said, the work that they've done, and just being here. You know, I feel like I have so much to learn, and yeah, so it's a journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. My name is Nico.
Nico, good to meet you.
You too.
And thank you.
What's your name?
For the work
Thank you. Thank you. Here's a one. What's your name? Wanja.
Wanja.
Good to meet you. Yeah.
Wandra, I'm gonna tell you something. You're young. This is my oldest daughter, so you're probably about her age. I'm gonna tell you something. This is what I tell my daughter. Okay, I'm part Native, but what color do I look?
White.
That's right. And you know who I can teach about my Native people? I have mixed kids too, black. You know who I can teach about other colors? White people. Just like you're saying you were white motivated, now you're going back to, you know what? You could do is teach the black people about white people, because that's what you know. You can educate them. And that's what it's about. Me, you, everybody, she knows about white people, black people, everything. I tell her, you teach your Native people. You know, I'm like, because that's all we can do. Because a lot of these people, white supremacists, all that, they don't want to hear nothing. I grew up between, they burnt my neighborhood down. That was my neighborhood. I was born right at that hospital. I'm like, that was my memories. My grandma lived right there. I grew up with my grandma basically. But I also grew up in Anoka when it was all white people. But that was my home. Everybody could tell you, I wanted to come back to my room. I spent all of my time there. You know, it's like, I watched the bakery and the whatever, and everything go down, or it wasn't, because the bakery is no longer there, but, and, you know, I was devastated at first watching all that, but you know, watching all of this unity, people protesting for everything I've been fighting for my whole life, I'm like, since, you know, it's like, I remember when I was about 13 years old, and, you know, the police would come, and they tell, you know, me and my friends would be walking down the street, and they would tell my friends, you know, they say, they tell me, go stand over here. All of a sudden they'd have my friends up, what are you doing, this and that, you know, black friends, Native friends, whatever, checking their pockets, everything else. We were all just together. They weren't doing nothing. And at that time, I was young and was, you know, a little bit naive. I didn't understand it. And I'm like, I'm going to tell you, the same people in the 3rd precinct, same people are in that precinct, or they're higher ups now, you know? And I'm like, I'm learning that they're higher ups. And I'm like, why are they even there? You know, same people that, you know, I know are racist, I know are in there, you know, and I'm like, no, that system needs to be cleaned out. But I'm like, out of everything we can do as a people, like, you know, teach each other about each other. If somebody doesn't know, because there's a lot of uneducated people out there, you know, it's not that they're racist, they just don't know. And hatred doesn't help it, you know, they think, oh, because they did something or said something. I have the same problem with my Native people, you know, because I've struggled my whole life being the color I am, you know, wasn't accepted here, wasn't accepted there, you know, and it's like, because I was Native in a white school, I got chased around, you know, all that, you know, so I've experienced the racism, you know, it's like, I've experienced it all, you know, like, and some of it, yeah, I chose to love everybody, you know, I didn't care, because that's how I was raised, you know, we were raised with the same, from the time I was born, I was raised, my aunt took everybody in. She grew up on 32nd, you know, she lived on 32nd in Chicago, and she took everybody in, so we weren't raised any other way, you know, we just seen people as people, you know, so yeah, there was things that would happen along the way that I didn't even understand, you know, and so yeah, that's why I try to raise my kids the same way. You don't show them anything, you know, don't show them who they think you are, you know what I mean, and then you show them education. Don't get angry. I see a lot of Natives, they do the same thing. Oh, you're white people, you don't know anything. Or somebody will ask them about their culture, you know, and they get angry and we're not, you know. No, you need to teach them because they don't know. That's the biggest thing I've learned about being around everybody, you know what I mean? So that's why I heard you say that and I was like, no, because you do know. I want to share this with you and say, educate, use that to educate everybody.
And I think too, the thing is like the importance, like we've seen a lot of, you know, white people come out and be present and like here at these protests, but kind of like the lady that was here earlier was saying, like these things tend to dissipate, you know, people eventually kind of like trickle back out and life keeps going, and you know, and you just I just fear like are we going to lose momentum, and where are the white allies going to be, you know, when all of this is over? Because like they have to be committed to education, because it is not the burden of those who have been mistreated. It's not the burden of those who have been affected negatively by the system. It's not their responsibility to teach, like to unpack their trauma for anybody who might ask. I can't tell you how many white friends I've had message me during this time, never asked me about my experience as a black person before. All of a sudden, out of the woodwork, oh, Wanja, what is it like to be black? Can I ask you a question about, you know, like having race conversations with people? Like, no. For the sake of my anxiety and my mental health, you cannot ask me those questions. It is not my burden, it is not my responsibility. Do a simple Google search. Siri can answer that question for you. Google can answer that question for you. YouTube has answered. Many minority brothers and sisters have written books, so many books, excellent books, about the very thing that you're asking me. Like, do you care so little about me that you would ask that? And I think, like, it's not even that they don't care. They just don't recognize, like, what they're asking of me, you know? And so it's like you have to spell everything out. And they think that, like, oh, it's the right thing. Like, we should be doing it in a relationship. You're my friend. Like, I want to talk to you about it. It's like, when you've read some books, maybe I'll have the mental energy to talk to you, because I will not answer and define every single, what is white privilege? What is white fragility? What is this? What is that? Like, you have to work with me here, you know? And so it gets exhausting, especially for me, because I was in white space for so much of my life that most of my friends, I feel like, are white. And so it's like I'm just flooded with questions, flooded with people wanting to like walk alongside me in this. And it's like, if you really want to help me, if you want to support the black community, like, keep fighting when all of this is over. And don't just post on your social media. Don't do it for, you know, like, to make it a part of like your like signaling, your virtue signaling, like, oh, I'm not a racist, look at this. Like, are you more concerned at being called a racist or being a racist? If you're more concerned about being a racist, then do your work, you know? Make sure that you're reading your books, make sure that you are talking to people who know more than you do, but that are white. Don't talk to black people don't ask them. Unless they volunteer this information to you, do not ask them, because you're putting an undue burden on them. Pay black people for the things that they've done for you and educating you. Like, pay the people who pay pay the NAACP, pay Black Lives Matter, pay all of these smaller grassroots organizations that are a part of our city that are doing anti-racist work, and join them in whatever ways they can. Listen to them. I cannot stress that enough, because I feel like a lot of I guess maybe the white people that I've been in circles with, they look for white people to validate the things that they're like. If the movement is happening, what credible white person do I know that has validated this movement? Okay, then it's valid. It's like, no, this does not need your stamp of approval. This is. Our experience is. I do not have to explain to you why this is all happening for you in order for you to believe me. If you don't believe me, we're done, And so I just, it's the only way. If our white allies are not actually going to do stuff afterwards, then their being here is actually really insulting. Because what are you here for?
Right. And that's what I was going to say.
You're using us.
That's in that circumstance, in that case, I'd be like, show up.
Yeah.
You want to do something? You want to know what it's about? Right. Show up. Right. Walk with me. And that's what I would tell them in that circumstance. I'm like, because and that's what I do tell people. You know what? You want to know? When we did Standing Rock, I did Standing Rock trying to fight the pipelines for the water and stuff like that. And that's what I would tell people. People are like this and that. I'm like, show up. You want to know? Show up. It's like, because if you're not showing up and you're just sitting there, and every state is having a movement right now, every single state. So what is your excuse that you can't show up? I'm like, so that's definitely what I would tell them. Show up. I mean, that's most important. Oh, and then and it's like we can't. That's the whole thing until everybody gets everything. So this is what bothers me right now. I'm going to tell you is when I hear, okay, all lives matter, and the thing is, what I tell people right now, yes, all lives matter, but it is the black people who have this movement going on. Black lives matter.
I'll take one. I'll take one for sure.
And I'm like,
oh, you're not. You're fine. They can.
And I'm like,
thank you.
Everybody,
Thank you.
I said, everybody.
What group are you all with?
Going out here.
You just did it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just my aunt's restaurant down there.
Oh, your mom got a restaurant down there?
My aunt's, yeah.
Your aunt? What's it called?
East Village Grove. It's
all
so
right.
good. I love East Village.
On Elliott?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
On Chicago, Elliott? What's it?
It's just right here.
She's right down.
Oh, okay.
Right across the street.
All right.
Thank you guys for the support. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really dope.
It's been super cool to see that.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you want one? Sure. Is this beef or chicken? Beef. I quit eating beef a long time ago, but I love samosas.
Yeah, I know, they're so good.
I'll give in for a samosa. Thank you. But yeah, it's like, what I tell them, and as I tell them, I say, you know what? I said right now it's a Black Lives Matter movement. I said, and everybody has to stand and walk with them. I said they're first. I said just like in Standing Rock, it was a Native life movement, and everybody followed behind the Native people. Now it's the Black Life movement. I said one day, because this is what the problem is. White people are up here, minorities are down here. The only way we can be equal, bring the white people down, bring the minorities up. That's the only way we can balance life out. And I'm like, so yes, I'm like, all lives matter, but just wait your turn. Wait your turn. I'm like, follow these. Because I'm like, and even with natives, that natives' lives matter. Yes, your life matters too, but you know what, right now, if we can get all these laws changed and everything else and everybody to be equal, you're going to be equal too. Because if Black Lives Matter, every minority life matters, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I'm like,
our suffering is bound up. I think it's Lila Watson. Is that her last name, Watson? She has this quote that says, if you've come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you've come here because you believe that your liberation is bound with mine, then, welcome. And I feel like that's not a perfect quote, but it's the concept, right? It's like our liberation is bound up in one another. And if we as minorities can't get together, if we as minorities can't see that, how this systemic racism affects all of us, even though it's in different ways, right? I feel like, Native and Black people are at the bottom of the totem pole for a lot of reasons. For Black people, it's I think in a lot of ways it's colorism, the fact that we are the least in proximity to whiteness. And so like people treat us like trash, you know, and I don't know, and for Native and Indigenous people, I mean, they took the land from you guys. So we're at the bottom of the totem pole, and like all of the other minority groups, like they have issues for sure. The government and systemic racism works to put them down as well. But it's like in different ways. Like I think they feel it in different ways, in similar ways, but also in different ways. And so, like, but all of it, like all of our struggles are bound up together. And if we can't like unite together to overthrow these systems, then we're all going to keep suffering, you know? And so Black Lives Matter is not negating the value and the worth of all of the other minority groups. What it's saying is that the system treats us as if we don't. And so we're just standing up. We are standing up for our dignity. We're standing up for our right to live, to breathe, to jog, to go to the grocery store, to eat ice cream, to sleep, like all of these things. Like we should not be shot and killed for this. It's not that, you know, like it just doesn't, like somebody mentioned that, like, you know, white people experience police brutality. I understand that there are white people who, but it's not an issue. It's like, okay, there was this one guy or a couple guys here and there, but it's not a systemic thing. You know, it's like the issue is police brutality. And so like if these kinds of cops, these aggressive cops are not being disciplined, and the system for discipline is a mess, let me tell you. On Tuesday, I listened to a New York Times episode. It's from The Daily, and they were talking about the Minneapolis PD and just how difficult it is to, you know, to discipline officers because they have all of these things that insulate them from punishment. And so, like, they might do something, but the union might get them off. And if they get fired, they could get rehired. Like, all of these different things. And also, like, let's talk about the fact that I think it's the president of the police union is Bob K.K. Kroll.
And I'm going to tell you, that's actually who I was actually talking about.
Right.
Yeah, I used to work with him about 25 years ago. I worked at Target, and he was a security guard working at the 3rd precinct. Yes, he was one of those white people that you knew was racist because he thought I was another white person. So, you know, I'm going to tell you, yeah, white people feel free to talk to other white people.
And black
like
people that are in their community, because people have done it to me.
Really?
have slipped up in front of me. But yeah.
So, you know, I'm like, but yeah, they really want to come to me and want to talk to me, and I'm like, looking at them like, I ain't that person.
You're not one of them, right?
Like,
I can talk to you.
Exactly. And I'm like, but yeah, and he was one of those people, and he because he was on the job and he had his uniform on, he didn't say enough to condemn him totally, but he said enough to let you know. You know what I mean? So when this all came about, I'm going to be honest with you, the first name that popped in my mind was his name. And then I found out, I didn't even know. And then I found out he was this president or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's your problem right there. That's your first problem right there. And now ever since I said his name, because I just said it amongst my own little crowd, all of a sudden he's been popping out left and right. And I'm looking like, okay, you know. But, you know, and I always just kind of felt like, you know, if I say something, I ain't nobody, this and that, what am I? If I go and say, oh, well, these, you know, it's like, what is my word? You know, nothing. You know why? Because the police have let everybody, you know, because me being around, believe me, I'm going to tell you, even though what color my skin is, if you're around black people, native people, whatever, yeah, might as well be one, because that's exactly how you're going to get treated. So, yeah, it was like, you know, and they put the fear, and that's the thing is, I know, I have PTSD because of these cops, you know, so it's like, and being my color, and I've only been messed with a few times, and I know, I've watched my friends, like, they beat the hell out of one of my friends, I mean, just hospitalized, everything else, gave them some money, you know, and it's like, to cover it all up, you know, it's just like, yeah, I've watched what people of color, I've watched them take a Native woman and just take her head and just slam her face continuously. She's bleeding all over the front of their cop car. I've seen all this. Now, this was back in the 80s when that happened, but, you know, it's like, it ain't stopped. They just try to get sneakier with it, that's all, and hope that cameras ain't there and hope whatever, but that man, Derek, whatever his face is, there's something not right about him. Yeah. Like, the way he knew what he was doing, the way he looked, the way he
19
everything.
infractions or something like that?
Huh?
Was it 19 infractions before, like, prior to
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Killed one person and at least 3 shootings.
Yeah, when it comes to stuff like that, yeah, they have to, you know, once they've shot somebody for whatever reason, you know what, they should be off and they should be doing something else, and they shouldn't be allowed back on the streets again, because that is their first taste of blood. You know, really, I don't feel like I said, we need security. We don't need the police. We need the police if there's a shooting. But we don't need the police because, you know, somebody's cat's up in a tree or because, you know, whatever else.
And then it's like, yeah, if you can't even trust, you like, people are, at this point, it's like, if something is happening and a black person is involved, like, if you call the police, that could be their death sentence. Like, that's the reality that we're working with. Right. And so, like, we need to know, like, and there's a lot of conversations, again, with, like, you know, should there be a police force? Some people believe that we should abolish the police and set up something, you know, different. Other people think that we should reform the police system. And, you know, it's like, I'm still learning about all of this, but the fact that, like, in the South, like, policing was enforced primarily to catch runaway slaves and to prevent slave riots. Like, if the system is corrupt from the start, how good can it be, right? Like, I mean, it's like people always talk about this kind of like, you know, there are a few bad apples on a good tree. It's like, no, there are a few good apples on a really rotten tree. And so, like, I don't know if I believe that the police system can be reformed. I feel like we have to, you know, but if they do reform it, they better make sure that the neighborhoods that these people are policing are reflective of their own ethnicity. You know, like, we don't need white officers policing and patrolling black neighborhoods, because this is how this happens, you know? And yeah, they don't learn how to de-escalate. You know, or they say that they train them how to do that, but it's like, you just watch some of these things and it's like, you made zero effort to de-escalate. This man was pinned down, couldn't breathe, his handcuffed behind his back. And I watched the video and it was awful. I don't recommend anybody watching it. I probably shouldn't have watched it, but I watched it. And he's taunting him, like, in the video, saying, like, oh, you're such a big man, like, big man. Like, I was like, are you serious right now? Like, you are a coward.
And I'm like this. I'm like, not all, and I have this argument, and not all police are bad, because I have a few friends that are police officers. You know, I mean, you know, and it's like, and I mean, we're not, let's go sit down and have, you know, whatever. But you know, they're people I know. I've been knowing for a long time, and you know, and they are good cops. In fact, one of them, you know, he's a black cop. He works for Hennepin County and whatever. And, you know, it's like, and he was the first one to get on his page and say, this is what happened, asphyxiation, da-da-da-da. He was wrong. And he was the first person. Then he even did a video and everything, because you know what? He grew up in that. He was from that neighborhood, you know? I mean, he was from Chicago originally, but he was from that neighborhood. And he was not, you know, accepting it and everything else. But the other thing, I'm going to tell you what black people can do is start standing up when they are going out here. Because I know he just went to, he just was trying to become something. I don't want to say what it is because I can't remember exactly. But he was trying to become something a few years back to up his, you know, who he was in Hennepin County. And the thing was, nobody showed up. He was the sheriff. He was going to be a sheriff. Nobody showed up to vote for him. So the white guy got it. That's the biggest, you know, that's another problem. They show up for this, which is lovely, beautiful, whatever, you know. Natives too. Natives are the same way. You don't show up for their people when it comes to something positive that they need to get these people in their system. Now, recently, with all that happened at Standing Rock, we finally got, 2-3 other Native people in the government, you know? And that's like, the first people that ever was even in the government of Native, you know? So it's like, we're doing better, but we just got to keep going, you know? And I just had, you know, this other, they're like, oh, we've had protests, we've had whatever. Well, you know what? That's why this one, covering the board, this one, we can't stop walking. That's the thing. This one can't stop until everything is done. And you know, and because that's what everybody else is waiting on. They're waiting on everybody to go home. You know what? I don't care if it gets down to 5 people. I don't care if we have to rotate. I don't care what happens. Stay home at night, come out during the day. You know, whatever it is. Make it known everywhere, you know. It's like, I'm gonna tell you, I live in St. Cloud now. And I had to explain this to my kids. I have other kids, you know, that are...
Thank you all for letting me record you all.
No problem. I was like, I had a question for you real quick. Why is it my media quit covering, they're stopping covering Minnesota, like they just do a little bit this and that, and then like no coverage at night anymore? I'm like...
That's how the corporate media is, man. I don't know. I don't have any answer for you.
I'm just like, I feel like they're trying to tone us out so that tone the movement out. That's what I'm feeling like.
It's sad, and it's it's like hard to
because
know.
this is where the heart of it is.
Yeah, you as well.
so much.
You as well. Take care. Yeah, thank you.
I met you at the government
Also,
center
yeah, can I
last
take a picture
time.
with you?
We're
I feel
all
like my
like,
friends are gonna be like, what? You met Unicorn, right?
Nice.
Thank you.
I had to take this ugly
I
thing
actually
out.
met you
Sorry.
at the government center last time for Standing Rock.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right,
Good to meet you.
You too. You too. Here's the press. Tons of press. They have tents up on top. Again, this is North Central University. This is where the memorial service was for George Floyd. That was filmed earlier. We were in the media room filming it, bringing you all the live stream of that. People are still getting put into their cars from inside. There were celebrities that came, such as Kevin Hart, T.I., Ludacris. Hey, Rez, how you doing?
Good to see you, brother.
Yep, respect.
Always good to see you.
Thank you.
What's up, Nico?
Not much. How you doing?
Hey, dude, you guys have been chilling.
Thank you.
You guys staying safe out there?
Trying to.
Good. I've been thinking about you guys. I was watching all your stuff the other night. You guys have just
Chris!
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Hey, keep it up, man.
Thank you. Some kudos from the corporate news. This is a brand new field, brand new soccer field that was built here in Elliott Park. Okay, you all. Well, I'm gonna bring the stream down. You see this, these tents. Houselessness is a problem here in Minneapolis. Another one of the systemic issues. I'll bring it back to the fact that why we're streaming. George Floyd, murdered last week. His killers now are in jail. All 4 of them. 3 of them are facing $750,000 bond. One of them is facing a $1 million bond. That was the main culprit, Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin also is getting charged by Keith Ellison, who is the Attorney General he's running the show now on the charges, from my understanding. There's been a massive military force that have built up here in Minneapolis, National Guard everywhere. We don't see them out here, which is quite nice for the family to not have to witness and for the community to not have to witness. You see people in the park, and that's just community coming together. That's the same thing on 38th in Chicago. Community has come together full force and has provided a lot of meals, a lot of space, a lot of grieving help and support, as well as just love. I want to bring it to something real quick. I'm not privy to all the information on the Twitter sphere, but thank you, appreciate that. But this movement now, George Floyd's murder has now sent ripples throughout the country. Those ripples are now being felt in manners that I think the police would be very surprised to see, and even normal, just people in general would be surprised to see. One of the biggest art museums in the country, I believe, has maybe not biggest art museums in the country, one of the first art museums in the country to say this, to talk about defunding. You can go ahead, you can walk. Okay. One of the major, let me bring it up real quick.
I had a question, sorry.
Okay, I'm live streaming right now. You can ask me if you want.
Do you know where the George Floyd I Can't Breathe shirts are? Did they pack up?
I think they packed them up, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank
They
you.
might be up at 30th in Chicago, though.
Okay. Thank
Yep.
you.
Minneapolis Walker Art Center, which is downtown. They just got a brand new space probably about 5 to 10 years ago, downtown Minneapolis off of Washington. They became the first major U.S. museum to stop contracting police for events. That is a consistent theme. University of Minnesota, from my understanding, Minneapolis Public Schools, Minneapolis Park Board, they're all divesting from utilizing the police as security. And they're divesting from utilizing the police in any kind of relationship when it comes to funding them and whatnot. And so that is a huge step by the community that's being taken to lessen the possibility of this happening further and further police killings of black folks, further police killings of anybody. And so right now there's conversations that are being had on the Twitter sphere from the city council members. Again, Minneapolis City Council is supposedly like pretty progressive in terms of a lot of other places, and also when you think about just politics in general, a lot of the times it's been run by the ruling class with not much kickback or not much pushback. Well, now a lot of the city council members here in Minneapolis are actually like past protesters, essentially. Like at least 3 of them were consistent coming to the Jamar Clark protests in 2015. I don't know their percentage of how many people were at the protest today, I mean this last week or so during this uprising, but I will say that the conversation now is happening on Twitter where they're talking about disbanding the Minneapolis police. And if you can think about that idea, just disbanding them, that is amazingly a step in the right direction. A lot of people in the community I've already heard say. We asked Mr. R.T. Ryback, who is the ex-mayor of Minneapolis as well, and now he's the head of the Minneapolis Foundation, one of the biggest foundations in Minneapolis, or in Minnesota in general, that also works with youth, doing a lot of youth work, and he's done a lot of youth work as well, from my understanding. They kicked it out of the park. If you're watching that soccer game or the soccer practice going on. We asked Mr. Ryback what that would look like, what it would look like to have a community that's run without the police. And he said it's not really up to a 65-year-old washed-up guy to decide. And so that was really interesting to see that even elected, even top elite politicians are also saying, look, I'm not the one to have these ideas, to bring them forth. That's for other people. And so they're sort of taking a step aside, saying that needs to happen. We need a better way of life, but also like other people can figure out a better way to have that happen. Other people being other people in the community, probably. And most likely black folks come into a coalition and come into some kind of agreement. As we heard even earlier today, just now, black folks are not a monolith. People are not a monolith. Everybody has different thoughts. Everybody has different feelings. You cannot just talk to one person and that is the black representative of that community. You can't talk to one person and that is the white representative of that community. That is not true. That is not right. You cannot do that. There is too many thoughts and too many ideas, which is essentially why, again, we feel like our coverage has been pretty important to capture all these ideas. We heard one person say earlier that they think these revolutions dissipate because identity politics, and really nobody feels it after a little bit of time, and everybody's separated, and it shouldn't be just Black Lives Matter. It should be more just against the idea of policing. And so that was what one person said just a little bit ago. Also, we heard yesterday from some folks I was talking to, and they were talking about reparations, and they were talking about how this now is going to force corporations even to start giving money, to start fueling money into maybe not just social justice issues, but in general community upliftment and community creations of better ways that'll help the community. A lot of these communities in these cities, these communities being communities that are not filled with upper mobility white folks, are battling a lot of difficulties, a lot of economic difficulties. A lot of the looting has gone on in lieu of the pandemic, where not a lot of people got much support. The government has not supported the people of America. As we heard from Mel Reeves, that is another reason why Mel is saying that this is even more accentuated out here, is because people have it in the back of their mind as to how the government has treated people. The government brings the military to police protests, but the government won't take those extra precautions to help its own citizens during the time of a pandemic. And so there's just so much discrepancies here in America and here in the systems that we live in and how we live in them. And so a lot of people are trying to challenge those, are trying to figure out better ways around it. A lot of people are making the connection between capitalism and the root of this country, that being genocide and chattel slavery, and it was being built by black folks on the backs of indigenous folks. And yet those two groups of folks, those two groups of people are now, like, consistently, not now, they have been consistently dismantled by white supremacy or attempted, a lot of attempted incursions on the freedom and the thought and the mind. We heard people talking about control the mind, you control the body, and so we heard that last night a lot. And so we've been trying to cover this from the jump. We'll try to be out a little bit more today as well. I know tomorrow we're going to try to cover some of the services. I think there's a Muslim service at 2 p.m. At Cup 38th in Chicago. We'll try to cover that. We'll try to be out around a little bit later tonight over on Chicago and 38th, where the site is, where he was murdered, he being George Floyd. And let me do one more thing and then bring it down. And then so last night there was an action against media bias, talking about media bias and how the state and the police give the narrative to the corporate media, and then the corporate media runs with that. They drew the connection between Liz Collin, who's an anchor for CBS, or excuse me, WCCO, which is a CBS affiliate. Liz Collin is the wife of Bob Kroll. Bob Kroll is the head of the Minneapolis Police Federation. So Bob Kroll, being the head of the Minneapolis Police Federation, married to Liz Collin, people are saying that's a huge problem. That is bias going on. There's implicit bias going on. We heard Nikema Levy-Armstrong, who had sort of she had emceed the protest yesterday. Basically, she said the sex can't be that good. You must have some of the same white supremacist thoughts as Bob Kroll if you are married to him. And Bob Kroll, again, is the head of the Minneapolis Police Federation, violently racist, was part of a motorcycle gang called City Heat, which is very racist. Bob Kroll is also part of the reason why the chief right now, the acting police chief, Chief Arredondo, who's from the community, had to sue the department that he is now the head of a few years back for racial discrimination. Bob Kroll is one of the reasons. Bob Kroll, Tim Dolan, those ilk. Those are the reasons why Chief Arredondo had, and others, and 4 others, had to file a federal lawsuit and win against the Minneapolis Police Department, claiming racial discrimination on the job. That is a consistent thing. That is a reality. People are dealing with this problem for 150 years since the Minneapolis Police Department has been around. Yeah, I would take one. Yeah. Thank you. You can throw it. Thank you. Nope, 1 is perfect. Thank you so much. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take like 2.
We got so many, dude.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bless you.
Thank you. Bless you. So Bob Kroll, he's been around for a while. He got voted in by his other Minneapolis Police Department constituents, 90% of which do not live in Minneapolis. Another problem. There's consistent problems. We've even covered problems about the Minneapolis contract through the police. We've covered, I don't think we've covered much about the insurance. There's a push by Communities United Against Police Brutality for insurance to come on the police officer, so they have personal insurance. So if they kill somebody, they probably won't be insured to be an officer anymore, and the money won't come out of the city's pocket, it'll come out of their pocket. And so a lot of the times when you have a police brutality case and it gets a settlement, who has to pay that? The taxpayers. Who's already paying the police officers? The taxpayers. Who are the police officers working for? The people. There's just so much discrepancies. It goes really wide and far. Really, there's a lot to deal with. In general, policing is now being talked about on a scale where people are trying to figure out alternatives. The people are talking about abolishing them. People are talking about reforming them. We'll try to be here to try to deconstruct what people are saying and how and what ways that they want to move forward. Again, thank you all for joining. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. Thank you for Dan and other folks in the back end running the back end of the stream. If we are a nonprofit organization, we're a 501c3 educational nonprofit organization. We've received a lot of donations, and we really can't thank you all enough. All of the donations we've received go straight back into our general operating costs, and they get figured out by our collective as to specifically how to do and what to do with them. We're looking at different ways to try to build the org in a more succinct process where now we have some of the funds to allow us to do some of the coverage that we would want, and also to get some of the ability to to get some better equipment and whatnot. So we really appreciate it. All of the donations are tax deductible. And again, like I said, they all go straight back into the general operating costs, which allow us to figure out exactly how we want to budget them. Thank you again for everybody. And we will take the stream down. We'll be back up a little bit later tonight. We might be covering some other cities as well. We're out there in Denver and we're out there in Philly. So check out our Twitter at @UR_ninja. Check out our Instagram, unicorn.riot. Check out our Facebook. Check out our YouTube and our Vimeo. Our website is unicornriot.ninja. To find out where to donate, you can go to unicornriot.ninja/donate. Again, thank you all for joining. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot, and we'll be out until the next time. Peace.